this is a dramatic shift in the religious landscape, and I think it's important that we acknowledge that. So this is especially true. I didn't put an age scale here, but if you look at ages, you will see that especially in the group between 20 and 35 years, like the young adults, the numbers at 2018 were actually at 40%. So it's not only, more than every third of our young people, would describe him or herself as non-religious. So that's just a really interesting and important thing to know. So if we look at this now in Massachusetts, in our state, in 2018, 60% identified as Christian. That's like typical for the national average. Massachusetts used to be the second, still is the second most Catholic state in the country after Rhode Island, and of those, and there used to be 60% of Catholics in Rhode Island, with 70% of Catholics. Now we have 34 identified as Catholics, so the number of Catholics went down by half in the last 50 years, and all the traditional institutions, all the religious institutions, they all lost dramatically. That's also true for most Protestant churches, that they lost. And you have the number here down there, 32%, that's a third, said they were unaffiliated nuns, and that includes people who call themselves atheists or agnostic. Now again, this is not that somebody said you are not Christian or you are not believing. This is like people self-identifying, right? They did interviews and they asked people these set of questions. How do you see yourself? And they would answer in these categories. So who are these people that call themselves nuns? That's actually not a really perfect term, nuns. The non-religious is an artificial umbrella term for a very broad group of vastly different people, and we'll talk a little bit about different motives for that. It's intended to be a descriptive term, right? It's trying to describe, these are people who do not have religion. People themselves who are in that group, they don't like being called the non-religious because it sounds like they don't have something they should have. It's a little bit judgmental because it's the reference point to saying non-religious is still religion, right? So you're supposed to have religion, but now these are not religious, so something is wrong. So they don't like that. I've heard of members in that group that react critically to this term. They don't feel that they are fairly described, and they don't say, they like saying we're not deficient. It's not that we don't have our convictions, our values, our beliefs. It's just that we are not part of a religious tradition or a religious institution. So why are people non-religious, and why is that number growing? So many of them have always been non-religious. They had the destiny, or how you want to say it, they had the fate of being born into households that were not religious. Their parents never taught them anything about that. They weren't familiar with prayer. They didn't count their blessings, whatever. So they never grew up with it. Some of them never learned a religious language, so that's why they're non-religious. Others were religious and left the religious institutions for these reasons. Sometimes because there's a very strong ecological movement among our young people who are worried about the future with good right. We're destroying our earth and the resources that we depend on, and so some people, they think that the churches are not doing enough against the exploitation and destruction of nature. So I'm calling that sins against the earth is one reason. They think we need to be more active in being good caretakers of our world. Some people have left religious institutions because of racism and not being treated fairly, being treated as second-class people, people overlooked, all of these issues. So I'm calling that sins against people of color. Some people leave the churches because of social exclusion, lack of resources and access. They think it's not fair that they're not being included more. I'm calling that sins against the poor. some people leave the churches because of discrimination and judgment. That's especially true for LGBTQ persons. You know that stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people who are outside of that classical spectrum of sexual orientation. They have experienced unbelievable amount of prejudice and judgment and hatred and violence and exclusion. There's a study I read recently that 65%, that's like 2 out of 3 transgender people have been excluded, sometimes disinherited, but violently excluded by their own families. 65%. It's 2 out of 3. It's unbelievable what they go through, these people. So they're not going to be happy in the traditional churches that are, often very judgmental and cruel. So that's why they are not part of churches. But what do they have in common if we look at things that they do, that they agree upon? And it's very interesting. And to some of these things, you might be able to relate to. Non-religious people are skeptical of dogma. They don't just will buy something just because it is said or because there's a doctrine. They're skeptical against laws and teachings of the church, of the churches that have been in place for many hundreds of years, and where they think sometimes they're not up to date or they can't relate to them. They are distrustful of institutions because the institutions have let them down, right? And if we look at the child abuse scandal in many institutions, and that's not only the Catholic Church, that's also Protestant churches, that's also sporting institutions, that's also schools. Distrustful of institutions. They don't believe that the churches will actually follow through with what they say. They don't believe that they will be on their side. They're often willing to listen to many different perspectives. Just because it's Christian doesn't mean it's true. Maybe there's some truth in Buddhism. Maybe there's some truth in natural religions. What they also do is they may mix traditions. Right? Things are no longer separated. This is a Catholic belief, and this is Muslim belief, and this is Protestant. They kind of are woven together, and people talk in sociology, they talk about the religious buffet, where people kind of go and they say, oh, I like this, and I'll take some of that, and I'll take some of that, and they put it all on their plate and weave it together into a mix that is sometimes very interesting to watch and to explore. They want to experience what is true. They want to have their own experiences. They want to know in their own bones what truth is and what works for them. And they don't want to be told what is written or what is said by some authority in the present or in the past. I can relate to that myself. I think there's a very legitimate hunger to wanting to know, have experiences with God directly, or religious experiences directly, to have experience with the Spirit directly and not just read about it somewhere, even if it's in the Bible, right? And then finally, they're sensitive to hypocrisy, right? And I can relate to that too. Let's say there's this saying, you have to preach, you have to do what you preach, right? The saying is the preacher says one thing and he does another thing, right? He talks about water and he drinks wine. He says you should do this and he does it himself in a different way. So hypocrisy is very hard to swallow, with good reason, right? People want credible role models. They want to be able to trust people in authority to do what they say, so that drives them away. And so, if we get to, so how do we work with people like that, who are so critical and who are not maybe accustomed to religious language and to the practice of our church. So I don't know how relevant this is for all of you, but I imagine that your young people are also part of this, of these young people that are exposed to this society that is moving away from institutional churches. So one way that we can work with them is that we have a very broad definition of spirituality. So many of the patients that I visit in the hospital in my work is they say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. And it's really important to them to say, I don't go to church on Sunday, and I don't read my Bible on Monday, I'm spiritual. So what is that? And the one definition of that I think is helpful and that I use in this work is, I call it a personal quest to find meaning and purpose in life by trusting and relating to something greater than oneself. Something greater than oneself. So it's not only about me, right? Life is not about me. I am part of something larger. That's true for all of us, not just Christian people or religious people. We are part of a bigger world. We are part of groups of people. We are, we relate to our surrounding, and that makes it bigger than ourselves. It's us in relation to others, other beings and other things, and that's present in all people from very young to the very old. So if we take that, if we take that model further on, what are things greater than oneself? That's what stands behind this. I just wanted this nice picture here. So what are things that are greater than oneself? Well, for religious people, obviously God is so much greater than ourselves. Some people don't call that God, they call it the higher power, right? The higher power. I know that there's a higher power. The term God might be, charged for them, might be loaded, might be too tight, too much associated with, I don't know, some of these images that there are out there. Sometimes I heard in the hospital, the man up, the old man up there, and they talk about God, and I'm like, what? Old man? Hello? But yes, the old man up there, right? So there's all these images that people have of God. So sometimes higher power is a little bit more, broader, a little bit more neutral. The universe is bigger than ourselves. Sometimes, this famous physicist Einstein says that it's impossible for somebody to behold the universe and not fall into a state of awe and wonderment, because it's so majestic, it's so enormous. The universe can be greater than myself. Nature is greater than myself. I am a part of nature. Nature is not a part of us, right? So we are in nature. Our vocation can be something that's larger than myself, because it's not just me thinking I would like to be a pastor, it's also a community around that says you have the gift to be a pastor and we will support you. You have the gift to be a chaplain and we want to support you. So vocation can be something greater than myself. I don't want to get up this morning, I want to stay in bed. On a cloudy day like this, it would be much nicer to stay in bed, but I have a calling. I have to go and do my work. I am called to help those poor people in the hospital. Scripture is something that is larger than oneself, and I'm talking about all kinds of scripture, right? We, as Christians, we refer to the Holy Scripture, the Bible, as that, but it can also be for some people what is larger than themselves is, philosophers, poetry, other kinds of religion from other, scripture from other religions. Literature and poetry is very much that, a conversation with something that's bigger than myself. What does that person experience? What does that person feel, see? Other examples of something greater than myself. Most people in the hospital, when you ask them what is really helpful for you to sustain you in this time of crisis, they will say, my family. My family. They are calling up, seeing how I'm doing. They are bringing me food. They are visiting me. They are going to back with me to talk to the doctor and make sure that I get the best treatment. For some people, what is greater than me is my ancestors. I don't know how much it is alive in your community, but we are, as individuals, not individuals, we are in a long chain. I like the image of, imagine a metal chain, that is put together by links, and those links, go back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And maybe, hopefully, they will, some of those links will continue into the future. So we are part of a very long tradition, or a very long strand that is definitely bigger than myself. Our communities, of course, are larger than myself. Our church communities, our neighborhoods, family communities are something that can be greater than myself. Philosophy, science, for some people, is that. It's something that is objective, outside of myself. They have to follow certain rules. Other things greater than oneself, business. It's known, for example, in Japan, there's this understanding that when you're an employee in a business, that business becomes your life. You are a member of that, and you serve that business, and sometimes to a degree that's unbelievable for us Westerners. They kind of work 6 days a week, 12-hour days. They kind of go eat, sleep, and go back to work, and that's like their sense of belonging, and that's where they can participate. Pets and animals can be that. It's incredible how many people say to me in the hospital that what they miss most, when I ask them, what do you miss the most from your home, is my dog. My dog, because those of you who know dogs or have dogs, they're incredibly loving and alive, and they don't care what mood you're in. You're grumpy, or you're upset, or you're exhausted. You come in at night, and they're just like, you're the best, the most important thing in the world, and they're just so happy, and they make you feel so precious. Some people think art is something that they can relate to, right? Something bigger than oneself. Our siblings, our children, grandchildren, sports teams. Yeah, I'm part of I'm quoting a patient. I'm part of the Red Sox family. We're doing so great. We are having such a season. We're struggling. You know these sport communities, right? Soccer fans or basketball fans. Celtics are doing really well right now. Wow! So they're all. It's combining. It's uniting. It generates unbelievable passion. And that can be something greater than oneself. And then finally, of course, our congregations. The military can do that. It's an incredibly bonding experience to be in war together, and the bond between soldier friends is incredible, and that is also something greater than oneself, right? It's me, and then there's the country I'm fighting for, my battalion, there's the laws that apply, the rules that apply. Patriotism is something bigger than oneself. That's a strange thing for us who are people who came into this country. I don't know about patriotism for you, but for some people that's something that's really very important, identity building, and it's something greater than oneself. Heroes can do that, right? It's my heroes. We look up to them. We follow them. There are role models. They did it. I can do it. Values is that, right? Values such as love, or kindness, or helpfulness is something that is bigger than myself that I can all attach to. So all of these things we can find in people who are religious and in people who are not religious. So at the end of the day, what we're aiming for, what we're trying to do, is we're trying to support spiritual well-being, right? That's our goal. We need to be clear about what we're doing. What are we working towards? So what is that? What is spiritual well-being? Well, simply said, and that's true for religious and non-religious people, life, what we're looking for is life-giving connection to something greater than oneself. So, I'm sorry that I'm offering you these terrible acronyms, but I just didn't want to write it out every time, something greater than oneself. So what we need to feel spiritually well is a living connection, a life-giving connection to something greater than oneself. Then we flourish, then we are fed, then we are being nourished. Two, beliefs, we're looking for beliefs, values, community, and practices that nurture hope, wonder, resiliency, right? That's what we talked about last week. Meaning and purpose, love, given and received. That when that happens, when we can live our beliefs, when we can live our values, when we can have community, then we are feeling spiritually well. 3, we need to reconcile with others when there's fractured relationships, when there's tension, when there's brokenness. We are looking for inner strength and peacefulness, and with that inner strength and peacefulness, we can survive the challenges of life. That's spiritual well-being. And 4, and these 3 things can be expressed in religious or secular language, right? So that's not spiritual well-being is not something that's only true for religious people or church people or Christians, right? That's true for all people. And so that's what we're looking for, spiritual well-being. And what we're trying to move away from is spiritual distress. So what is that? Distress resulting from a broken or threatened connection to something greater than oneself, right? So when I hear in the hospital a patient telling me, I went to church all my life and I have a really good relationship with God, and now all of a sudden I have this cancer. Why is God doing that to me? I just don't understand that. It's just I just don't get it. We'll talk more about that when we get to the suffering piece. Then the relationship to God might be broken or threatened, right? God is not answering. I'm praying every night and I don't get, God is not answering. That's spiritual distress, right? My family let me down. My friends betrayed me. My wife betrayed me. My husband beat me. All of that leads to spiritual distress because the connection to something greater than oneself is broken or threatened. The upset that results when the events threaten core beliefs in life's meaning, purpose, and fairness. Right? When something really bad happens to us, is God even there? Is God? I had a patient once who was a gunshot victim. He was paraplegic after that, and he said to me, when I was lying there on the street, bleeding, I knew that God was looking somewhere else. He was busy somewhere else, is what his term was. He was busy somewhere else. He didn't see that, because if he did, it wouldn't have happened, right? God would have stopped it. So that's an event that threatened core beliefs in life's meaning, purpose, and fairness. We can lose our trust in humanity when we are treated cruelly, right? What's happening in Russia now, what we're seeing in the Ukraine, the cruelty, the brutality of Russian soldiers that we're hearing about more and more, threatens the core beliefs in human goodness, in human kind. How can they do such unbelievable things? And this spiritual distress can be expressed again in religious and in secular language. So you can see where I'm heading. What we're talking about are human experiences. They're not just about Christian people or about church people. They happen to all of us, that we are either in a state of spiritual well-being overall, or if we're in spiritual distress. So, how do we work with a nun? How do we work with somebody who is non-Christian or non-religious? 4 ways to work with a nun. 1, we need to not judge them, right? We talked a lot about that on our first day when we started the chaplaincy. It's so important to not be moralizing and not to, you should be going to church. If you only went to church and listened to my sermon, you would have, you'd be fine. You'd be much better off. So what we want to do is compassionate curiosity and exploration. Compassionate in the sense of, what you're going through, that could happen to me, or it was not your fault. Nobody ever told you how to become religious. Nobody ever showed you how to pray. Nobody ever taught you how to be a kind person. So we want to be compassionate about them, and then curious. Like tell me about how you see the world. What helps you? How do you construct your relationship to something greater than yourself. I know how I do it, but that's me, right? We have our way of doing that. But what about this person who's in front of us and who's looking at us for help maybe? How has someone come to be allergic to the word religious? Help me understand that. Why is it that you're so strongly saying, I'm not religious? Well, you know, the things that they did to the children in the Catholic Church. Or, you know, I heard one patient say to me, when my marriage didn't work well, 20 years ago, my priest said to me, I can't have communion anymore, and I can't go to church. And I haven't set a foot in the church ever since, and I'm so mad at this priest because it just wasn't working, and I had to, you know, we had to end this relationship, and I'm happily married now. But for 20 years, you know, this person has been not setting a foot in a Catholic church, and has become allergic to the word religious. I don't want anything to do with these people because they were so judgmental and so hurtful. And maybe somebody has become allergic even to the word spiritual, and they want to term it differently. I mean, there's like all spiritual things that are not well done or not helpful. So one of the things that also helps to work with nuns is to acknowledge the harm done by religious traditions. Many people move away from Christianity or from religious institutions because they were wounded by clergy, by authority, who judged them, who didn't understand them, who said, you know, this is wrong, this is sinful, this is against God's creation. You know, you gave a promise that you would stay with this person as long as you are alive, and now you're walking away, you can't do that. You know, we need to acknowledge the harm done by religious traditions. That's often the first step towards healing, when something is acknowledged and we can say, I understand that. I might respond in a similar way if I were you. So what I think we have to do is it's a translation issue. Right? I said it's not just about the religious and the non-religious, the people who have something and the people who don't have something. It's about finding language for our common human experience and for common. Could you please put your microphone on silence, please? Thank you. We have to find, it's a matter of translation. If it's a human experience for both us and the non-believing, then we have to learn language, and we call that code switching. So we have a code, right? A language code. What do I mean with that? You know, praying language, Bible language, quoting things in the scripture. So there's our code that we're familiar with, and what we need to figure out is what is a code, what is a language that these non-believers understand, what is relevant for them. What kind of behaviors do they understand? What kind of behaviors can we agree on? And what is where do they feel a sense of belonging, right? Those three things are vital. What is the belief of that person? What is the behavior of that person that they aspire to? What is their ethics? What are their values? What are they doing? And where do they belong to? Where are they part of? And so chaplains must learn new languages and practices of meaning to meet the spiritual needs that are expressed differently. So they express their needs of spirituality different than we are used to if we're like, you know, church people. And so we need to do this code switching. So what are secular spiritual resources? And you'll see, I call them secular, but they're all resources that we tap into ourselves. We talked about people, right? That was the number one thing in resilience, people. Relationships, family, friends, staff, team. That's a resource that we can tap into. We can help people who are struggling to see, you know, what are your relationships? Do you have members of your family? Do you have friends? Do you have people who support you? A resource can be photos of loved ones, special times. Like often when I go in the hospital, there's a little photo on the bedside of our patient, and it shows maybe if it's an elderly male patient, you chose an elderly female, then I asked him, who's that person on the photo there? Well, that's my wife. Oh, tell me about her. Well, you know, we've been married for 55 years, and where did you meet, and how, and she died, you know, 3 years ago. Tell me about her. What were experiences that you had? So we can always tap into those kind of resources, special times. We can tap into precious memories. Tell me about a vacation you did that can never be taken away from us, right? Those memories that we have for special celebrations or trips or things that we did together. Cooking can be an incredible resource for working and talking with people. Gardening, some people love to garden. Acts of compassion can be really helpful, like writing letters to people who are in need. Like, for example, there's this initiative out there that you can write cards to soldiers that are out in the war, up in the front to support them. We talk about flowers changing seasons. You can read a poem or a special text that you have come across that might be very helpful. We can talk about team sports. Did you see the game yesterday? You know, that's so relationship building. We can organize a pet visit. We talked about the importance of animals, and you know, there's dogs, for example, that go around in the hospital and visit patients, and it gives patients such joy to have this animal see them. We can do images, you know, like meditation practices, guided imagery. That's with people who have to be cognitively intact. We can do breathing exercises, meditation, prayers. We can bring in music. I remember last time when I asked you what gives you strength, many of you said music, right? Music, and we can bring that to people who are hurting in the hospital or in their homes. What music do you like? You know, putting it up on the phone, sharing it with them, listening to the lyrics together. What is it that you like about the song? What's your favorite song? What's your favorite lyrics? What is it that you sang when you were young and the world was in front of you? Inviting journaling, you know, to write. That can be very helpful. You know, what are you going through? What's the hardest? What's really going on with me right now? How's that different than what had happened before? So people can get a lot of strength out of writing. Life review. Tell me about other times when you were in crisis. How did you get through them? And if you did it that way then, can you apply some of those insights and learnings now? How do you see the arc of your life? You know, is there something that you seem to be seeing as a pattern in your life? You know, a patient said to me once, you know, I'm realizing always when it was really hard and critical, I always felt God particularly close at those times. And she figured that out when she was looking at the arc of her life and all these different events. So it can be really helpful to do life review, or if this was a non-Christian person or a non-spiritual person, they might say, you know, always when I most needed it, my friends were there for me. They would support me and carry me through this, which is also a life review. So I invite you to a little group exercise. As you know, I like doing that. I did the last couple of times. And I'm going to ask you to write a version of Psalm 23. And I didn't pull it up for you because I know you know Psalm 23 enough. If you want to look at it in Haitian Creole, you do that. But I want you to write Psalm 23 in a language that does not use God. Right? So I want you, this is what we call code switching. Take out a piece of paper, pull up Psalm 23, and you know, the Lord is my shepherd. I want you to write that down in a way that you don't talk about the Lord, but that you use other language. Does that make sense? And you write the whole Psalm down, and we'll see how the Psalm 23 sounds when we translate it into non-religious language. Yeah? I'll give you a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to ask you, some of you, to read what you wrote down. Is that clear what I'm asking? Yes. You make a new version of Psalm 23 without God. Exactly. I know that's stretching it, But that's practicing code switching. That's practicing, working with somebody who's never heard of God or who doesn't relate to God. Yeah.
Can you just go back just a little bit more regarding the code switching? Actually, I do have can you just clarify a little bit more about it? Yes, that part.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I was saying is, so let's say for a believer, for a Christian person, God is my rock and my anchor. And now we want to talk to that might be the experience of the Christian, of the religious person. Now we have a person who doesn't have a relationship to God. So what is their rock and their anchor? What could that be in their life? Well, for them it might be nature is their rock and their anchor. So what we need to do is that we code switch from God is my rock, we switch it to nature is my rock and my anchor. Nature is what helps me. My relationships is what helps me. So that's what code switching means. We try to understand in their value system what helps them in that same way that my belief, my faith helps me. Yeah? So that's a stretch. I'm aware of it, but does that make more sense?
Yes.
And what I'm trying to say is it's not that they don't have such experiences. We just have to find the language for it. Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying. All right, right away. You don't need a version of Psalm 23 pulled up, right? Or do you? If you want it, you can put it up on your own phones. I don't think I had to do that. I thought if I pull up a version, then you might prefer one of the old.
Everybody feels the same way. I can't think.
Are they going to mute themselves?
Yeah, they got.
You can ask them to mute themselves.
You did. You did.
Could I ask everybody online to mute their microphones? Because we can hear sometimes some of the things you do.
You're very nice.
Much nicer.
I would be. Oh my God.
Yes, I'm laughing because that's an impossible task.
I think as a person of faith, it was, I'm assuming all of us, as people of faith, it was very tough.
Yes, yes, thank you for saying that, and I think all of you agree, like everybody said that right away. Oh, yes, it's tough. Thank you, I agree, and I know. You found it assuring, reassuring?
Very reassuring, yes.
There you go, now that's a whole different experience.
There was something very intimate about it.
Yes, for sure. Writing a song is very intimate. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anybody else want to say how that was for them? How to even write it, just the approach?
Yeah, it's also put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Get yourself out of your comfort zone and see somebody on his own ways of seeing things. So that helps you see somebody not religious.
Yes, I thank you very much for that statement. I'm very aware that I am taking you out of your comfort zone, out of my own comfort zone also. By the way, I mean it's not that it's only easy for me. It's just that I have more practice to do that. But that's exactly the idea. We're trying to see the world from the perspective of the other. That's what chaplaincy is all about. So thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Having to write this thought down with my own word make me appropriate the right word, make me have a soul like mine, and make me help me go inside myself to live the right word of the soul.
Yes, yes, it becomes personal.
Personal, yeah.
Yes, that's beautiful, yeah. Wow, so that was a lovely experience for you.
Yeah.
That's what I'm hearing. Fabulous. Okay, anybody else? Isn't it interesting that people have different experiences with this? Yes, Sister Barbara.
I felt myself completely relaxed. I just relaxed. It was quite wonderful. Thank you.
Wow. See, that's also a very different experience. Thank you. See, the more we would ask everybody, the more variation we would get. So thank you all for sharing that. Does anybody want to read what you wrote?
Yes, I would like to do that.
Okay.
Not all of it per se, but I'd like to read some of it. Yes.
Yes. You don't. And all of you have to. You don't have to read all of it. Just a probe. Yes, please.
Yes. I have support and resources. I will be okay. When I am in need, my support system has come through. My support helps calm me down and helps me to find rest. My support helps me to consider all sides for what is right, for the right reason. When the idea of death overwhelms me, I do not fear because I am not alone. Your guidance is with me.
Wow.
That's good.
That's good.
That's fabulous. I hope you can hear that. It gives me the chills. How naturally you went into that language. You can recognize Psalm 23 language. It's just without God. Yeah, beautiful. And it doesn't mean that it's against God, right? When you say,
what I find interesting because I am a person of faith, inside of me, I knew I was talking about God.
yes, yes,
And that was the reassuring.
yes, exactly. When you said, "When I face death, you are with me," it's not clear who that you is. You're not saying God, but you know who you're talking to. So that's beautiful. I can see why that would be reassuring. Yes, that's a great example of code switching. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes.
I'll give it a shot.
Give it a shot, even though it was hard for you.
It wasn't. I mean, Dolores is my buddy, and we were back here joking about it and stuff. But I rolled with it. My strength is my fortitude. I shall not want. I'll think of my strength as I lie down in green pastures or walk beside the still waters. My strength restores my soul and leads me in the paths of righteousness for my sake. My strength helps me face my enemy and triumph over evil.
Thank you.
I mean, as a Christian, I know my strength is God, but you told us not to use God. So.
What a clever way to code switch, huh? Yes, my strength. Absolutely, that's a secular language that anybody will be able to, roll with. And a lot of people, when I ask them in the hospital, what allows you to get through this crisis, they're saying, I'm a very strong person. And they might, totally relate to your psalm and interpret it differently. But that's a great way to do it. Thank you. All right, we have space for one more. Do you want to do yours?
Yes, but mine is not in English. It's my own language.
That's great.
Yeah, it's my own
I
language.
won't understand more than 2 words, but that doesn't matter.
You understand? I can say for myself, bon Dieu tout-puissant, c'est berger moi.
You can Almighty God.
Yeah, I don't use the word God. But I use like Haitian Creole.
He's cheating. He said God. He's not even saying God.
Without stopping him, even if you cheat, so even if you think you cheat. Yes.
Oh, okay. I see. Okay. I use God anyways.
I'll do a few from mine.
Okay.
I have. I'll try it. I have. My parents are my world. I shall not want or lie. They make me to lie down in green pastures. My mom restored my soul. She always lead me in the correct path for my father's sake. When I am going through hard time, even facing death, I am not afraid because I know my parents will comfort me. My parents prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. I am strong because they cover my head with oil of love. And my cup runs over with all the love I receive from them. I add my own. Yes.
Wow.
That's lovely.
That's very nice.
Lovely. Very beautiful. And a lot of, and it's true, right? You're speaking out of your own experience. It's true. That is what your mother did. That is what your parents did. And also, you know, God is our ultimate parent. So in some way, it's indirectly similar to what we heard earlier. Indirectly, you're also talking about God, but you're not using religious language. That's fabulous. Thank you very much.
Is it all a song or just a few verses?
Can I try?
One moment, please. I need to understand this question. Yeah.
I'm asking if in your own chapter 23 you want to give your own interpretation, how do you understand it, or just a few verses, the beginning verse?
So I don't need all of it. I just want us to practice what I was calling code switching. That we try to express the same intimate, beautiful connection that we have in this Psalm of David. That we try to use that, express that without God language.
Okay, but I want to use the last part.
You want to do the last part?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I'll have you online. I'd like you to hear yours too. Just let's hear this gentleman first. Yeah.
Yes, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of my daddy forever.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, that's the idea. Thank you. Very nice. And even quoted orally. You didn't even have to write it down.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So you wanted to read yours, and then I think we have to go to a break. Oh no, we have some time. Yes, please. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Greetings, everyone. I found in this psalm, it's a place that I get out of my comfort zone, and I find in such a way a place to exchange my trouble for His peace, a place to find joy even during the most troubled time. And I found a great promise that He will be by my side to overcome what I'm going through right now.
Wow. That's beautiful. Thank you.
I just want to add something.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what we just show you, and then the power you can find in that name, and then there's nothing you can do without God's help.
Can you repeat your question, please?
It's not a question. I just add something.
Oh, it's a comment. Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to understand it.
I think it's like show you, and then the power you can find in God's name, and then so there is nothing you can do without God. For me, I don't know.
Yes, I agree with that. And are you saying that makes it impossible for you to write this psalm without God in it?
There's nothing you can do without God.
Yeah, there's nothing left to talk about without God, you're saying?
No, the idea, he wants to express how the much power behind the name of God.
Wow.
Because when you just move, the name of God become weak. There's no strength. Without God, you have the presence of the name of God.
Yeah. So
am I correct?
Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So when you write the Psalm 23 without God, what does that do to you? You're saying it's not possible.
No, I don't say that.
He's not.
No.
You're not saying that.
No.
How do you apply your comment to this exercise? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I just want to talk about the form, why they're writing, because they want to show you so the power and then so what God can do in your life. That's it.
Yes, I think that's true, and I think you are lucky, and that's probably not the right word. You are blessed is the better word to be able to see it that way. The question is, what do you do when you sit and talk with somebody who doesn't see it that way, who does not have that history, that connection that you have? And that's what we're trying to do here. right? That's the struggle. But I mean, I'm with you. I'm a fan. I think that's unbelievable. What is expressed in these psalms, and it's just a little expression of what is really true, right? Of the mystery of God. Absolutely, I'm with you on that one, 100%. Yes.
So if you are with a patient who is really not spiritual or religious, and you talking about Psalm 23, if you can substitute the word God for something else, do you think that they're going to connect better with you and try to understand what it's all about?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do, and the most important thing. So the connection is one piece, but the most important thing is that they remember the resources they can tap into.
Mm-hmm.
So if they think about their mother, who held them in their arms and brought them, to green pastures and played in the garden with them, then something very powerful can be evoked, and then they can tap into these resources that they have, which is incredible. That's the gift.
So you're not using the word God, you're using something that they can relate to,
Exactly.
but the power of God is still there.
Exactly.
May I ask something?
Yes. Yes.
May I say something?
Yes, please. Let's do the online question first, and then we have one here in the room also. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, with what I'm saying, I would like to, when I did the first part, I stopped at your guidance reassures me, and I'd like to finish the rest, if you don't mind, so I can then add what I would like to contribute to this part of the discussion, if that's okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. So I stopped at your guidance. Your guidance reassures me. You set me a table that makes that puts my enemies to shame. You drench my head with oil, and I am full. Yes, goodness and grace, is in fact with me all the days of my life. The truth of my support will sustain me for as long as I live. And I thought it would be important for me to finish it so I could add this part to it. In rewriting this without God, you can change the words in a way that's not offensive. If you're attaching your support or your strength or your mother or etc., that does not violate your conscience with certain aspects of this. It can only be attributed to God. Only God can do it in that way in your life, to say, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. No one person can be so sustaining in that way. However, if we rephrase it in a way that speaks to what God does for us through those words, then it raises the principle of what the scripture represents. And with principles, people can always identify without saying anything about God, but you're bringing the principles of what this is supposed to mean forward.
Yes. Yes, I think that's beautifully expressed. That's exactly the idea. We're not taking away from our faith or trying to make God small. It's more like by using other language, we're indirectly talking about God, right? Indirectly. That's how you're saying it. So it's beautiful. I totally agree with that. Okay, so we have one more.
May I add something to it as well?
Just we have a person in the room who put up her hand first, so let's have her talk first, and then I'll get back to you. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Whether Christian or not Christian, your whole aspect is your well-being.
Yes.
So when we're providing services as a chaplaincy, we usually go, it's usually because it's because the person has some issues with their well-being and all that. So
My way of saying it, I said, my health is my ultimate being. I lack nothing. It leads me beside quiet water. When I have it, I feel powerful. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will feel no evil, for I have my health, and that comforts me. With my health, I keep my head up in the presence of my enemies. I feel powerful. Surely long life will follow me all days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of well-being.
In the house of well-being.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Okay, so somebody wanted to say something online, and then I think we have to come to a close. 10:20? Yes, I think we do. Yes.
Okay. As I reflect on Psalms 23, I break it down into 4 sections, or I can call 4 stanzas. And I'm going to use the acronym PG. PG, the first stanza, I call it, it's a personal guidance. The personal guidance, I see, that's when the psalmist says, he will hide me in his pavilion, in the secret place of his tabernacle will he hide me. He shall set upon a rock. There I see a personal activity and also a passive activity. That's the first PG. The second PG I call powerful guardianship. And that's where you find you can exchange your trouble for peace. You can find a place to find joy during the troubled times. You can also find a great work for those or for you who will abide in him. The third PG that I found, I call it profound glory. That's where we find the word tabernacle. This is your secret place, a place holy of holy. It's a place that you can get everything off your mind and embrace His presence. And lastly, we find the assurance of precious grace. Precious grace. We grasp everything that we are going through. We can rest and assure that He is with us. We have nothing to be afraid. We have nothing to fear because He's working right beside us.
Yeah, so I had to smile when I listened to you. Just to make it clear on the last term, PG. You know, what was it? Precious grace. Grace is also religious language, right? And so I don't know if it makes total sense to me how it is powerful for you, and that it's beautiful how you talk about it. For a person that is not used to religious language, powerful grace doesn't register. So I am not sure that would work. But thank you for sharing your beautiful poem.
Yeah, but grace is not only a religious word, because we use it in politics, we use it in insurance vocabulary, period of grace, the president can make a grace for all the prisoners. They can use grace in different areas.
Yes. But I do think it's heavily religiously charged, right? Or the tradition comes from God's grace by grace alone, and all of these things. So I mean, I don't know. It would depend on our partner of conversation to see.
What can I explain what I mean by profound grace?
I think you already.
You allow me 1 minute.
I think I understood what you mean with profound grace.
Okay.
But would you like to add something? Please go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
No, it's okay. The profound grace
that the person can find a refuge on the person he's talking to by showing or explaining the reason why when you are going through this, you will find a place that the person can be on your shoes. That's where you find profound grace, because you are not alone on the journey. That's what I mean.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for adding that. So, I think...
Yeah, may I?
Numa, you tell me, when do we
I think I was hearing what you said, not necessarily because what we would say to the person that we're dealing with, but more so speaking to the specific principles that we draw from the Psalm that we could then identify to relate to someone, and even if it's a non-religious language.
Yeah. So you're saying grace is one of the principles you talked about. What I'm trying to say is the words we use, they carry great importance. Some of them are colored by religious traditions, and what we're trying to find are words that people who are not religious can relate to. So it might work, grace, it might not. That depends very much on the person we're talking to. So let's stop the conversation here. I don't want to get into arguments or into smaller things. For me, it's more about the idea of translation, right? That's my idea. So I've kept you going for some time. Let's take not quite yet. I just wanted to summarize this whole thing.
Stop moving.
Stop moving.
He's a big man, he's got to push.
I think it fell asleep. Yeah, it's not doing it manually either. Yeah, let's take our 15-minute break. We're going to start now and pick it up at, let me just look at my watch. There it is. We'll pick it up at 11:45. Yeah? 10:45.
Before you go, there's an evaluation when you're coming back. If you didn't do it online, I send the link to you. Some of them do it. At least I received 3 of you do it. While you are here, you can go over your phone and you go to the link that said like your feedback, and you can fill it out, and I will receive it automatically. Otherwise, if you want to fill it out with a paper, we can do that.
And a 15 minutes break to do it.
No, so that's kind of like a homework. You should do it since yesterday. So you are late. So that you can do it anytime before you.
What if you're not a minister?
If you don't?
What if you're not a minister of a church?
That's for the class, the evaluation, the feedback.
Not the one you sent us yesterday.
Yes, you fill it out.
I saw it. It's like talking about minister of a church.
Oh no, it's not that. It's like the link for the feedback.
Okay.
Okay, I will send it back to you guys. So that enjoy your break. By email. Yes, you should send it to us. Yeah, well, I can send it to you. Okay, enjoy your break and coming back on time.
Excuse me, are you wanting to get your present?
Like I've been blessed with good health all my life, and like 5 years ago,
for Zoom
I was
participants,
actually driving home from the hospital.
would like you enjoy, and then please feel the feedback.
And, well, it was a
And I would
detention
appreciate
record.
that.
Thank God I had it all
Please,
fixed.
please.
You know that. But you went from being on top of the world to like, whoops.
You can have everything, and then you don't have health. Perfect. It's nothing. So your health is at the top of your priorities.
And then it happened again 7, 8 months ago. I couldn't walk. Well, I could. You know, very difficult, blah, 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 blah. And I thought I was going to travel again. We were down in Tennessee.
Praise God, you're doing better.
I've never been to travel.
Well, I have a paper. I have the paper. That's it. You can get it. So I'll give you a paper for that.
Feedback in it? Feedback?
first half. It's important to me that you know when we do this code switching, or when we talk to people who are not religious, it doesn't change our perspective, our position one little bit. We get to be what we are. What we're doing is we're stepping into the shoes of the other. We're stepping into this other perspective and see how can we connect to somebody who doesn't have that language or that tradition. So in summary, what we're doing this morning is we're trying to find what is for other people something greater than themselves. And then learn a new language, which is what I invited you to do. And I'm familiar, I'm aware that was stretching you and that was uncomfortable. And I thank you for engaging it anyway and to stepping into this unfamiliar land, this going, somebody said, outside of your comfort zone. Thank you for doing that. Those of you who shared their writing. So we're trying to assess what can help them and what kind of spiritual strength they have and what distress they hold, and then we try to explore compassionate, helpful resources for those people, right? That's in summary what we're trying to do with the non-believers. So, coming to our second part, which won't be so foreign to you, that's much more familiar with all of us. Anybody who is a believer at some point in their life will struggle with this question. How does my faith stand in relationship to my suffering? And so I'm calling this the God and the mystery of suffering, and there's two ways of looking at this, I think. One way is we could look at it theoretically, conceptually. I'm calling it philosophically. And the problem is this: if God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving, how is it possible that there is suffering and pain? How does that go together? How, or another way to say it is, why does God, who is love and is good and is kind, how does God permit pain and suffering and even evil? Right? How does that go together? Philosophically, logically, that's the problem. But there's another way of looking at it, which by the way, I don't think we can solve that problem theoretically. I don't think there's a logic answer to that, because it's human logic. But the way I want to approach it is there's also an existential problem, which is not so much a theoretical problem, but an experiential problem, right? My God, why have you forsaken me? You know those terms originally they were written up in the Psalms, but then those are the words of the dying Christ on the cross, right? Why have you forsaken me? Why have you let me down? Why are you silent? Why are you letting this happen? So this comes out of the experience even of Christ, who had such a deep, powerful relationship to God. That's the topic we're looking at today. Why did God give me this cancer? Why did God allow this accident to happen? That just recently we had a case. A 16-year-old girl was standing at a corner with two friends of hers, and she was shot accidentally by a car coming by, and they actually were targeting her friend. And this young woman, 16 years old, three bullets in her chest, and she died. Why does God allow something like that to happen? Or why is God not answering when I speak to Him? So that's the existential problem that we're looking at. That's not a concept or a theoretical question. That's a very painful, emotional, existential question. And so, how am I going to approach this? So in the hospital, it's much more prevalent, this practical, this experiential level that we're talking about. The second approach to this, we're not going to talk about philosophical models of addressing this issue. For patients, this is not a theoretical, abstract question. It's an existential and a practical one. They're lying in bed, they're hurting, they just got really bad news, they had a car accident, there was gunshot wound or something, a heart attack, an aneurysm, and they're bleeding, so patients don't have the luxury of reflecting on this question from the comfort of an office desk or a computer where they can read books and write about it. Much closer to our experience, your and my experience, like everyday life, we have these questions. Why is God doing this to me? Why is it hurting so much? Right? So the way I'm going to do this is I think that the key to this question is, how do we interpret suffering? How do we understand what's happening to me? How do we frame it? How do we put it into the arc of our life? And so what I did is I went around, and I've been over many years asking my patients, how do you understand and how do you interpret your suffering? How do you make sense of it? How do you weave that into your experience of life, but also your experience of faith? And so I took the answers I heard from these questions, and I put them into groups of different kinds of answers, and I found 5 different ways that my patients over the last 20 years have answered that question. So this is not coming from a theoretical perspective, but from their life experience of living in a hospital, experiencing illness, experiencing hardship, experiencing accidents. So these 5 ways I want to present to you. Some of them will be familiar to you, maybe. Some of them might be not so familiar. So how do patients who identify as spiritual and religious people understand their suffering, their illness and their pain in the light of their faith? That's the question I asked them. And how do they make sense of what they experience? So here we go. First group of people that I've heard speaking is they were saying something like, God has a plan for me. Right? These are patients who are steeped in faith and trust in a loving and caring God. These are often patients that have strong ties to their faith communities and a very good support system. Family members that come in, church members that come in. They usually actively and regularly practice their faith. One of these patients I'm going to tell you about this is a young man from Honduras. And young man, he was 42. He had half his life over, and he was very sick. He had a cancer over the last 3 years, and he said to me, I have so many plans for my life still. I don't want to die. I love life, and I don't know why this is happening to me, but I trust that I am in God's hands and that God has a plan for me. That's the quote for this one here. I know that God will guide me no matter what happens, and so I trust that this is all going to be fine. And this gentleman, when I talked to him over a course of several weeks, I saw him like 5-6 times. He never changed. He never wavered in this approach. For him, it was always clear, I have this illness, my life is happening this way, and he died in the hospital 5 weeks after he said this sentence here, God has a plan for me. So those are those patients who don't have to understand why they're suffering or why they're suffering. They're just trusting that their faith is strong enough that they're saying, God has a plan for me. God knows what God is doing. I don't know what's going on, but I trust God, and that will be fine. Those are, of course, the easiest patients for us to accompany, because we can affirm their faith and we can say, "Amen, brother. I'm so glad that you have that faith." And they often are, to me, models of inspiration. They're inspiring, unbelievable faith heroes, role models. So that's one group of patients. The second kind of patient, I must have done something wrong, right? They understand their illness as a consequence of something they did wrong earlier in their life. They stole something, they lied, they betrayed their friend, they cheated on their spouse. And so they think God is punishing them with their illness for an unethical deed they committed in their life. So this is a punishment model. They have the idea that God, there's a lot of verses like that in the Bible, right? I will, you do this, you're going to get that. The people of Israel, right? If you don't stop doing what you're doing, you will be conquered, and that's exactly what happened. They were conquered twice, and the exile in the Jewish Bible is described as a consequence of punishment of God for them being godless people and not doing the right thing. So the patients that work out of this, they've been taught this model. I had this one patient, I remember her really well. She was 72 years old, and she had breast cancer in advanced stage 4, and she was sitting in bed, and she was like, I just can't think of what I did wrong. But it has to be something, because I have cancer, and God, is giving me this as a punishment. But I just can't think what would be so bad. I mean, I didn't kill anybody. I didn't run anybody over with my car. I didn't, sometimes I lied to my friends, or I took some money somewhere where I started laying around. And but God wouldn't punish me like that for that, right? She was just like, and then I visit her again, same thing. I just don't know what I did wrong. I don't know how, and even if I did something wrong, how can God be so harsh and punish me so disproportionately with a fatal disease? How does that work with, how is God doing that? Why would God do such a cruel thing to me? Why do I deserve this? I was a faithful person. I went to church. Now I'm 72 years old and I'm dying. Like it somehow, she came out of this model, but it didn't make sense to her. It didn't quite jive because she couldn't remember what she did. I had another patient who says, I know why I have cancer. 30 years ago, I had an abortion, and now God is punishing me. I mean, she was just like set on that idea that was God's punishment for an abortion. I said, tell me about that story, and it was a terrible story. She was attacked, and it was sexual violence done to her, and she didn't want the child out of that kind of relationship. And but 30 years later, that's what popped up in her mind. That's what I did. I must have done something wrong. So when I work with these kind of patients, I first try to understand what's the story? What makes you say that? What makes you think that God is punishing you? And what did you do? What do you think you did that deserves that kind of punishment? And then I asked them, is there anything else? Tell me about your image of God. Like, is there anything else you learned about God? And then this lady, she said, well, the nuns that taught me in high school, they always said, God punishes the little sins right away and the big ones later on in life. So I'm like, I was looking, and she was like, I'm looking for this big sin, I just can't find it. I just don't find it. And so I try to say to this woman, did the nuns tell you anything else about God? Like, did they teach you other sides, other characters of God? Yes, they also talked about God's grace and God's love. Tell me more about that. And so then we slowly kind of try to reinforce that. But that's a very common model that I find, especially in the elder generation. And there's of course literature, and there's of course a lot of traditional Christianity is like that. That they say, if you don't do this, if you don't do what the Bible says, you're gonna get it. If you don't do this, you're gonna be punished. And so then we have people who try to understand their illnesses in that model. A third one is the one that was for me the most surprising when I started working this. This one is I call it the mystery model. I am grateful for my cancer. This is a quote from a young woman, 27 years old. When I talked to her, she had no hair, and she was, dying of lymphoma. Several years of terrible life, going to the hospital every other month, doing surgeries, doing marrow transplants, getting her marrow, pulled out of her bones and replaced, and all of these things. And she said, yes, the journey of my illness has been difficult and painful, and she says, I don't wish it on anybody else. It was really not fun. But she said, the experience of illness has taught me something important and so precious about life that I'm glad I learned that. I wouldn't have learned that without that. And so I'm grateful for my cancer because it taught me what that is. I said, so what did it teach you? What did you learn? Well, I got a whole different sense of what's important in life and what's not important. All this time that I spent on the television and you know, doing stupid stuff like shopping, and I realized, she said, what's most important to me is my relationships, my family, my friends. Love is important, and so that's what I'm calling this learning includes a re-evaluation and reorientation of what is really valuable and worthwhile. And now I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with my family, with my friends. I'm trying to, you know, talk to them, appreciate them, tell them how much I love them. And so she said, I learned how precious my life is. I don't know why I'm suffering. I don't know why God is doing this, but I am learning something from it. So it's like a pedagogical understanding and a pedagogical interpretation. It's teaching me something that I wouldn't have learned otherwise. So this is an incredible way to approach and understand suffering, and that's why you can see why I'm saying the key is how we understand, how we interpret our experiences. One of my my great teachers, who was a patient, was a black woman, and she's one of my heroes. She was 47 years old, and she had 3 illnesses. 3. She had MS, multiple sclerosis, which is you lose your muscles over time, and it's always a deadly disease. You get weaker and weaker in increments. She also had chronic arthritis, so her joints hurt really bad all the time. And then she had a digestive
ulcerative colitis.
Thank you. Yes, ulcerative colitis. Thank you. So she had 3 illnesses. Each of them would have been enough to flatten me. But she said, you know, she always said, Rev, to me, Rev, it's not about the cards that you are dealt. And what she meant with cards, like a card game, it's not about what illness you are given or what illness you have to, what suffering you have to bear. It's about how you respond to the illness. It's about how you play the cards, she said. It's about how you respond to it. That shows character, that has freedom. You get to choose how to respond to that, and I'm choosing that I love my life, and I can't wait to get out there and work with my students. She was a counselor, a counselor for high schoolers, career counselor. And she said, my illnesses have made me stronger. And it showed me that I have choice, and that I can decide to feel like a victim and like a, pity myself and lie at home and be depressed, or I can just go out there and do my best. And so she also said that I'm grateful for my illness. So these are incredible people, and I'm not saying everybody should be that way, right? Hear me well. I'm just saying this is what I have found, and what I have found to be very, very remarkable and inspiring. So then there's a 4th group of people that say, well, yes, of course, God is good, and God is creator of the world, but somebody else is messing up God's good creation, right? So there's an evil power at work. God created a good world, but a counter power is distorting it, is breaking it, is interfering. That evil power has different names, have been, Satan or the devil. An evangelical understanding fights a battle in the hearts of believers and leads them into temptation and destruction. So it can happen, this fight can happen inside of my heart. Or magicians can cast curses and evil spells in the animistic, spirit-filled worldview of people from Haiti, and you, of course, are very familiar with that mindset, the Caribbean, Latin America, or Africa. And so there is that the power of the magician, the power of the curse, interferes with God's good creation and is in some way destructing it. I have a couple of examples of how that can play out. One patient of mine says, I drank, and I drink too much. But you know, the devil tempted me to drink, and so it's not my fault, right? It's not my fault. Or, you know, I was going the right way, and I was going to church, and I was reading the Bible, and I would go, you know, Bible study, and then the devil led me down the wrong path, right? So here's the good power, and here's the bad power, and the bad power takes over, and you know, so that's how it happens. Or I had a really incredible relationship with this one young man from Guatemala. He was 22 years old, and he was dying, and the doctors couldn't put their hands on what was going on medically, and they called it failure to thrive. And if you are in the medical profession, you know that that's something that they put out when they don't know what's going on. Failure to thrive, like. And so I went and talked to this gentleman, and I told him I could speak Spanish because I lived in Latin America for some time. And so he said to me, well then you'll understand it because the doctors don't get it. In my village, there's a magician, he lives across the street, and he casts this curse on me, and it's a dark curse, and that's why I'm dying. And they don't get that. They don't understand, you know, what's going on. They don't understand the power of this magician, and there's a long story, you know, with that, why this something had happened. It's an old family feud, like a family fight, and the other family, you know, felt taken advantage of by his family, and so they went to the magician and paid him 2 goats or something, and then he cast his curse. And so I tried to work with this gentleman and say, you know, is there something we can do about that? Is there like a white magician, if you will? You know how there's like black magic and white magic. Is there a white magician who can counter that curse? And he said, no, this is a really powerful magician. And I said, well, what about God? Isn't God stronger than all magic and can easily, you know, hold that? And he said, well, that's true, God is powerful, but God doesn't deal with these little things. This is between us and his family there, and so it doesn't apply. So I was like, I couldn't help this gentleman, but I know that's how he interpreted his suffering, right? This was like coming from a different power that was out there, and I know that you are familiar with that kind of thinking because it's alive in Haiti, that I know. And then there's a 5th model, which is similar to the first one, but it's a little bit different. And this one is I'm calling God is with me. You know, not so much God has a plan for me, like going forward, but God is with me. And so this is this group of patients, they say, I don't understand what is going on with them. I don't know where this is heading. I don't know how much time I still have in this world, but they trust that they're not alone on the journey. They're like, I know that God is loyal and faithful, and I believe that God is going with me through thick and thin, no matter what happens. I feel God is close to me every step of the way. And here I'm thinking of a woman who also had cancer. She had ovarian cancer, and she, you know, had these really ups and downs with her physical state. And always when she was miserable, when she'd be vomiting and she'd have, you know, she'd feel weak and ill over years, she said, you know, that was always the times when I felt God closest, when I was like really at my end, at my wit's end, when I was hopeless and helpless and I didn't know what to do. Then I always felt this comforting presence and the sense of well-being close to me. And so I know that God is with me. I don't like what's happening with me. I don't always you know, agree with what's happening with me, but I know at the end of the day, God is close to me every step of the way. So that's also really wonderful to work with because, you know, we just can affirm that. So when we meet suffering people, how do we respond? How do we get to these 5 kinds of, you know, group answers? So the first thing that's important is, this ties us back now to our first lesson when we talked about spiritual care and listening, right? Listening. Let them tell their story. Let them tell their their story. Don't talk them out of it. Don't give them counsel about what they should do and what they should do and how many times they should pray or which Bible verse they should read. Let them tell their story. How are you holding this? How do you understand this? Tell me about when did it start? What do you think? What do you think is going to happen to you? How are you with how are you with dying? Are you okay with dying? What do you think is going to happen with you after you die? And let them talk about all of this stuff that's in their mind anyway, and we're opening the doors to that. Support them in the process of making sense on their journeys with illness, pain, and suffering. What do you make of this? Like, I'll tell you one example that comes to mind. So I visited this one woman once. The doctor said, she has psychiatric issues and she has suicidal ideation, and you want to be careful with this one. So I went in there and we talked, and it was a lovely, lovely conversation. And she told me about how her husband had died one day. They had this really close relationship, and they would do everything together. And one day he said to her, let's go out and have breakfast together. And they said, yes, let's do it. So they went to the diner. And as they were walking to the diner, he all of a sudden said, I'm not feeling well. And then he collapsed on the street, and they had to call the ambulance, and he died in the ambulance, massive heart attack. And she said, my life has never been the same, and I don't want to live anymore. What's the point of living now that he's gone? And I said, I can understand that. It's a terribly lonely life. And she said, yes, I wish they would just give me a pill, and then that would be just done. I would be overdone with that. I said, who would give you a pill? Well, the doctors, they should give me a pill. But since they're not giving me a pill, I try to do it myself. I said, you did? Tell me about that. Well, 3 times. First time, I swallowed a whole bunch of pills, and it wasn't enough. So they found me, and then they brought me to the psychiatric hospital, pumped up my stomach, and they brought me back. So I was like, damn it, here I am again. The second time, I cut my wrists, but I didn't cut them deep enough. So I bled and bled and bled, and then they found me, and they put me to the hospital, and they patched me up, and it didn't work. And then she did it a 3rd time, and this time was more medication, but still wasn't enough because her neighbor found her, and they pumped her out. And so, I'm like thinking, for heaven's sake, 3 times. I mean, real serious suicide attempts, and I have my own reaction to that. I'm like, don't do that. And it's just like, life is precious, whatever. So I said to her, what do you make of that? Like, how do you understand that? Like, you tried 3 times, and it didn't work. And then she said to me, well, God doesn't want me to die. It's not my time yet. I said, right. So now you're not going to try and kill yourself anymore. Nope, no, I'm done. Now I'm going to wait until it's my time and until God takes me. And if I hadn't asked that question, what do you make of that? I would have never known what she's doing with that in her mind. She's lying there in the hospital all day long thinking about her suicide attempts. And so this is what I mean, support them in the process of making sense of their journeys with illness, pain, and suffering. She's miserably alone. She's so lonely that she doesn't want to live, and so she thinks she'll take care of it, but now she's realizing, well, that's not how it works. God doesn't want me to die. So she had enough religious framework to see it that way, and what an interesting, way to see a suicide attempt. The 3rd thing we can do to respond is we want to strengthen and affirm belief systems that help our patients, our parishioners, that help them make sense and empower them to make peace with their destiny and create hope. So we call that healthy coping skills, right? So spirituality, religion can help them to affirm their belief systems, like these 2, model number 1 and number 5, where the patient says, I know that God is with me. Amen. Right? I also believe that God is with you, and the Bible tells us all about it. And I'm so glad you're doing that. And what can we do to strengthen that? Well, you can pray with me. You can give me a Bible. Sure, I'll bring you a Bible and the priest and the anointing of the sick. Whatever it takes, we're gonna support that to strengthen that belief system that helps this gentleman, even though he's dying, to be at peace in his heart, as he's dying. Or when when we strengthen and affirm also means that yes, you know, the second model that I was telling you about, the woman who says like, I don't know what is happening, but I'm learning something about life. Yes, we don't understand life sometimes. We don't understand why things happen to us, and that's because we're not God. But I'm so glad that you're learning something out of this, and yes, life is all about relationships, and yes, use the time that you have well, and how else, you know, who have you not reached out to yet, and who do you need to talk to? So we want to help and strengthen our belief systems that help empower people to make peace with their destiny and create hope. That's like healthy coping skills. And we want to discourage belief systems that make our patients or our parishioners feel guilty, unloved, helpless, punished, or devalued. Right? And we call those unhealthy coping skills. Like this lady who said, you know, 72 years old, I have cancer. What did I do wrong that I deserve this cancer? Well, maybe it doesn't work that way. Maybe God is not the one who will punish you with cancer. Maybe it has different reasons. Tell me, you know, so tell me, what else do you know about God, right? That was that example. What else did you hear? What else did you hear the nun tell you about God? Well, God is gracious. Ah, yes, I think so too. Tell me more about that. Let's read about, you know, a psalm where you can see that God is gracious and merciful. So whenever we can help people to feel less guilty, unloved, or helpless, you know, we want to discourage those belief systems. So those are the 4 ways we can respond to them. And the most important first step, even though, you know, I'm telling you, discourage or encourage, the most important first step is always we need to be able to sit on, I call it the mourning bench, with our patients when their pain is beyond words. We need to be able to be silent with them. Right? And again, we started out with Job this morning. When Job lost everything, right? His property, all the cattle was robbed, was taken away by robbers. His children all died. His own health fell away. He was, you know, he had this kind of skin disease, and he was sitting on this pile of rubble, of trash, and he was scraping his wounds with a shard of dirt that was a broken pot that was lying there. When he was sitting there, his friends came, his closest friend, 3 of them, and the story is told that for, in Job, in the Bible, the story is told that for 7 days and 7 nights they sat in silence. They sat in silence because the pain and the suffering was so unbearably big that words wouldn't touch it. Words wouldn't be close. So that's what I'm saying. When our patients, when their pain is beyond words, we need to be able to sit with them in silence. We need to make space for them to express what is deep inside them. Let them complain. Let them mourn. Let them cry. Let them lament. We have these wonderful, this wonderful poetry in the Bible, sounds of lament, right? Where of old people did that, and they not only did that, but they were incorporated into the scripture because it's so important that we express ourselves. There's lots of psalms of lament. Let them be angry at God and know that God is not fazed by that, right? You know, I've said that, I think I've said that before, but imagine you're a parent and your little kid has a temper tantrum and they scream around because they're not getting, I don't know, a lollipop, and you know that they don't need a lollipop because they just had chocolate and they don't need another lollipop. So they're having this temper tantrum. Is it that you would mind that they scream and yell and bang their feet and whatever? And we know as parents, they're going to get over it. That's what they do. They just can't have the lollipop. You know, so if we can do that as parents, how is it that God wouldn't take that when we're angry or when we're having our temper tantrum? So we can allow people, often people have a hard time with being angry at God, and we can say that it's part of faith is that we doubt. It's part of faith is that we sometimes are not happy with what we see unfolding. Don't talk them out of their pain. We cannot argue people out of their feelings, and we cannot argue them out of their pain. That's such a hard thing to feel, and they want to be acknowledged and honored, so that brings us all back to that first lesson. The other thing that I think we need to remember is this is just common wisdom that we all hold and know suffering and illness and pain and loss and death belongs to life. It's not that God is letting us down. It's just always part of every life. We all will suffer some pain at some point. We all will get sick at some point, like it or not. We all suffer pain and loss. We all, at one point, will die, and we know it, and we talk about it. They're unavoidable parts of every life. And for people of faith, we know, and we can hold on to it, that life is impermanent, yes. God is not. Life is painful, yes. God is loving and kind. Life is full of disappointing losses, and God is our rock, untouched by any of them. And so I'd like to come to a close with a quote from Romans that I just always think is so beautiful. I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present or the future, nor any powers, neither height nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. No suffering can separate us, even though sometimes it feels as if God has let us down, or that God is not there. I find that a very, very consoling verse to get back to, and that leaves us time to talk about questions, wonderments.
One question.
Yeah?
In the 4 ways to respond to suffering, and the second part, you talk about support them in the process. When that person, based on your story, when that person said that God doesn't want me to die at that time, we can switch from that chaplain heart to pastor heart right now. Can we do that this way?
Yes.
As soon as she agrees that.
Yes, exactly. So then we can switch to the pastor hat, if you will, but that's because she's being the pastor. She's doing theology, right? It's not that you're telling her, God doesn't want you to die, and that's why this is happening. That would be our interpretation, and that might be, interesting, but we can't put it onto them. It has to be self-referential. If she is the theologian that says, God doesn't want me to die, then you can say, wow, I think that's an amazing way to see that. I think, if I look at this, I would agree. God is the creator of life. He doesn't want us to end it. So then you can affirm that and strengthen that. And but it has to be that she says it first, because otherwise we're putting it onto her and then it might not fit. Yes. Yeah.
If I understand, as pastor, we have 2 hats. Chaplain and pastor.
At least 2 hats. You have a couple
At
more.
least.
You're also a father.
But
you're
can I say that?
Yes.
The chaplaincy hat comes first?
In the hospital, yes. Yes. So the way I see it is, the context determines the role, determines the task. So if you're on Sunday morning in the church, the context is church, your role is pastor, and your task is to preach. If you're in the hospital, or if you're at home visiting your patient and they're ill, the context is, let's say, hospital bed, right? Now your role is chaplain, and your task is to listen. So depends on the context where you put on which hat. But it's very good to have a clear clarity about, so what's my hat right now? Am I wearing a pastor's hat, or am I wearing a chaplain's hat? So it doesn't come first in all situations. Sometimes people seek you out in your parish for a conversation, then your hat is the pastor hat, right? It's still good to listen to them, I think, and it's still good to use some of these skills we've talked about. What I've learned is that some of these chaplaincy skills are actually very helpful life skills. So I use them also in the context, but our job there is also to offer guidance and to direct and to say, this is what I would do. Have you thought about counseling or whatever? But in the hospital, yes, our hat is the chaplain hat. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for the image. Yes, other wonderments. What do you think about those models? Are they familiar to you? They make sense to you? Do you wonder about them?
Are there 5 ways to approach your client or your the third one? First, it is a set of mind. Grateful in any kind of situation. You find a way to be grateful. I think even every situation in life, find a way not to give opportunity to, this is God, this is the devil, this is someone who doesn't like me, this is something, but say, what I can learn from that situation happening to me. That's just a comment. It's not really a question. So you went for the set of mind.
Yes.
You are Christian or now.
Yes.
But you can
exactly
transfer.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. And the important thing in all of this is that we can't go. This is what I was just trying to say to you. We can't go and say, here's the model. Take it here. I want you to see it this way. I want you to be grateful, because then our patients will think, well, it's easy for you to say that. You're not the one who's suffering. So we need this to be self-referential. People need to come to this in their journey, in their development, and then we can affirm it and strengthen it. But we can't put it onto them, otherwise it won't stick. That's the important piece here. I saw a hand somewhere over there. Did I? No. Yes.
I think that everything that we are learning, especially like today, how it wraps up everything, it's very essential to the church right now. Especially I'm a youth leader in my church, and I was talking with the youth, and it's everything. The conversation that we had was very familiar with about them questioning their belief with God and how they see the church and everything like that. And what you're saying, I think it's very important that we start to listen instead of talking, because the church people have a way of always talking with church dialect, that God is good, but then a lot of people, they don't see that. They don't understand how is that, considering what is going on in their lives. We teach people the theology, the principles, but we don't show them how to practice it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of church people, they don't practice what they're speaking. They don't practice what they're reading. They just they soak it up, but they don't follow it up with the actions. They don't really show love, and love is seeing the person where they are and meeting them there, and not saying this is what you have to do, but let me help you come out of there. Let me help you, not putting on them, but like what you said, it's not going to fit. They're not going to understand, because everybody has a different worldview, and it's your job to understand like what is going on with them. And I feel like the models are very important, because especially the part that says let them tell their story, because we're so quick to just like, oh, God is this, God is that, but they don't understand that. They're not going to see that. So allowing them to tell their story, allowing them to really self-reflect, and it gives them the opportunity to just really see for themselves. And so I think everything's in prayer.
Yeah, that's a beautiful statement. Thank you for saying that. I so agree on all counts. It's exactly what it is about. I call this, what we do is practical theology. This is practicing what we're saying, that we want to respect and regard other people, that we honor them. We are all created in the image of God. If that's true, then why would I not go and ask that question? Tell me about how you see this, because God is in them, even though they're not in the church, or even though they're not, old and wise or something. So yeah, absolutely, that's so beautifully said. Thank you. Yes, two.
St. James says, quick to listen. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. So if you listen, and you don't have to always jump into a conversation, you should just listen and hear what people have to say, and then, if you want to say something, then later say something.
Yes.
But quick to, that's why you have 2 ears.
Yeah.
I like that. Thank you. Sister Barbara, yeah.
I was also thinking, and because that many times when people are complaining and, you know, wow, we, and all this stuff in the hospital, no matter what they're saying, I think of it as a prayer. This is their prayer. I'm not going to tell them to pray differently. I'm going to be with them and accompany them in their prayer, because God can only deal with us if we're real. And this person now is being real. And I think it's a holy moment to hear all this stuff about, you know, what did I do wrong, and God is like this, and I thought God was loving, and blah, 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 blah. It's a prayer.
I love it. Yeah.
And I also think the thing that as I've been listening to you, you're always asking people open-ended questions and not saying, well, yeah, I think that's great. You're asking people to even go more deeply into their life, so that they're not held up by a prayer of a bad habit. I think that's it's obviously part of your practice, because you never, that's how you spoke through the whole time you were speaking. So thank you. That's a great witness of what a chaplain does.
Thank you.
You will get more answers with open-ended questions too.
Yeah.
Which leads you to another question.
You're right.
Which leads you to another question.
Yes, and that leads to a real incredible story.
And that's when you really get the story.
Yes.
With all these questions, you get the answers.
Yes. Yes, sir, please.
Yes, I want to share something with the class. Yes, this class is very important for me. It's not only for the chapter, but also for the ministry. So we can use it, because I learned a lot. Okay, so I'm very shocked what I hear. So the class is very, very important. If I don't come here, maybe I don't hear, or I might know what's going on. But since I sit here, I learn, and I'm really happy I'm here. So I'm going to ask you first, if you give me like 2-3 minutes, I'm going to ask you first, everyone, can you before I say what I'm going to say, take a minute silence for the family, because we're talking about silence thing. Get a minute silence, nobody say anything. Thank you. The reason why I do that, because sometimes, God let things happen is for the reason. Sometimes you might understand if for the glory of God. Things might be happening hard, tragedy, accident happen, but it might be, you never know. Yesterday, I hear something, I get my client with me. She tried to share something with me, and then we pass by, and I see in that place, in the funeral home, a lot of people, a lot of youth and young, but you can see in the face, sad, very sad. She said, "Man, look, listen, look. You know what's going on here? You see the funeral?" I said, "A home?" I said, "Yes." "See our people faces?" I say, "Yeah." Because it's an abandoned mass not too far from here. So, and I would say for the parents, always talk to your kid, your child. And whatever the age, you can still talk to them. Because sometimes when the parents come in, they're already gone, but you suffer. So what it is 2 girls. They went to see our friend, and then when they come back, and they got the cast on their head, and then they don't hear nothing. Maybe a big loud music, and they walk into the truck, and then they don't eat anything. It's very sad. And one of them, the train coming. He cut her, and then the other one looked like crazy because it's the one they get. And the blood was everywhere, and then all the people in that area so crying, and guess what? She going to graduate, able to go in the college. So the sadness thing in this, Mom, she's only one in the family. Only one in the family. Since I hear that, even you got a kid you don't, or you got a kid, I understand that situation. Like we sit in the class, we hear all these. I feel like it's the spirit of God, you know, just to you to make that, you know. Since we sit here, and then some people, you know, in the funeral room today, and for the tragedy problem like that. So it's painful. So, and our family, all of the Asian people, we are in a bad situation right now. So we know we lost so many. But something just happened, you hear or you see, it's very difficult life. We just talk about it before finish. The parents, like two of them, are they going to make it? If God, only God can make them. That's why I want to share. Thank you for the time. Thank you for everyone you listen to me. Thank you.
Yes, life could be terrible. It's true.
And I guess that's where the quietness comes. You know, when those people are lamenting, what do? You just sit down and listen. Because what is it are you gonna say? Or it was God's plan? You know, it's gonna be even worse. You just have to listen.
Yeah.
You know. You cry with them. You know, you definitely. You know, you definitely. Yeah.
Yes.
What qualities to make a good chaplain? Not the skills.
Not skills. What qualities?
To make a good chaplain.
Great question.
Let me try with one answer.
One answer?
Yeah. Be a good listener.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That's number one.
That's one thing. Yes, a good listener. A chaplain needs to be curious, like interested. You know, he or she needs to be curious about what is your perspective on this. What is your experience? What is your story? They need to be curious. That's the second piece. The third one is I think it helps to like people. You know, to enjoy other people, to see their beauty, to see their specialness, their youth, the way they approach things. So appreciation of others is a really important thing, I think. And then we have to exude, as chaplains, you want to exude warmth as opposed to strictness or judgment. You know, people. There's a study that shows that when we walk into a room, somebody doesn't know us, inside of 2 seconds, they have already formed an opinion about us based on how our face is, how our eyes are, what we're you know, in the young ones they say what we're giving off, like how we come across. And they'll see the kindness in your eyes. They will also see when we're judgmental or harsh or rigid. So I think as a way of being, it's really good for a chaplain to be warm or have a basic kindness. What else? Ability to be self-aware. Like we need to realize, like for example, I have to write a psalm without God. That's really uncomfortable for me. You know, we need to be aware of that, what's going on inside of us, so that whatever happens inside of us doesn't get between me and the patient. You know, doesn't become hijack the conversation or distract from the conversation. Like for example, in this example of this woman who was telling me about her suicidal attempts, when I start thinking about why I think it's not right to suicide, the moment I start thinking about that, I'm not really with that patient anymore. I'm like thinking about my theology of life or my ideas. So I have to be aware of that and put it aside and say, let me be with you. You know, so you have to be able to connect to the patient. So those are the most important things. That I don't think those are skills. That's more like a way of being, right? A way of being. Does that answer your question?
Yes. The reason I'm asking you this question because most of the profession, it's not only chaplain. Most of the profession to helping people.
Excuse me. One moment. Yes, you can ask something. I'm just listening to one of the people present in the room. I'll come back to you in a moment. Yes.
Yeah. The reason I was asking about this question is about like not only chaplain, it's all of the profession you're using to helping people.
Yes.
That person can have good skill, good education, but the temperament, the character, that person doesn't have it to perform the duties. That's killing the environment.
Yes.
So you can be
Yes.
a nurse
That's
as
what
a skill, but you don't have the temperament to be a nurse. You can be a doctor, you can be a pastor, but you don't have the character and the dignity to things that make a patient worse. If you're a chaplain, you can go to whatever the school it is to get a good skill to be a chaplain. But because of your character and your personality, you get to that room, to that patient's waiting for good words to make a good day, and you can fulfill that request.
Yes.
I remember I was, when I had my daughter, I got I forget what you call it. You can die when you're doing things. And the question they asked me if I need a chaplain to come in, because we gotta wait. If I had the C-section, either one of us die or both of us die. So they give me a choice if I need to listen to someone, make me feel good to make the decision. And by my faith, I said, none of us not gonna die. I chose God in that sense. But when that person's walking to the room I'm supposed to be, and the way I just look at that person, and I said, I don't think that person can see. The pain I'm living right now, it's not a good presentation the way that person showed up in that room I was waiting for. And I said, I'm so sorry, I'm fine, don't worry about me. I don't need anything. Not about you doesn't have the skills, just the way that person is presenting in that.
Yeah,
I think that's very good.
Yes, I can understand that. That would affect me also, and I hear that a lot from patients that many of the doctors don't have. They call it people skills, good people skills. They come in and they kind of throw all this stuff at you, and it's just like you don't feel seen, you don't feel recognized. They don't listen. They don't know how to listen. That's very true. So thank you for adding that. That's so important. And I think there's a younger generation of doctors where they're trying to teach them that more actively. But it's some people have it more and others have it less. It's really true. It's really true. Yeah. So yes, what would you want to comment on the internet? You were going to say, ask a question or say a comment?
Yeah, I want to add something to what you said. My question is, the role of the chaplain, is it to make somebody feel good, or the perspective of the person at the other end is a way for them to make them feel good? What is it in good side of the perspective? Is our role to make somebody feel good, or are they waiting for us to make them feel good?
Are they waiting for us to do what? Are they waiting for
the other person?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if I understand the question. What I understood, what I understand is you're saying, what is our job? Are we supposed to make the patients feel good? Is that the question?
Yes, that's the one of the that's the first. The second one, if the patient waits for us to make them feel good in their situation. I don't know if I actually push it the right way.
Yeah, so I still didn't understand the second part of the question.
Can I ask may I say something about this one? I can read between the lines what he's trying to say.
Okay.
This is not chaplain to make the patient feel good. The role of the chaplain is to be there, to not only to listen to what the person is going through, but also to feel empathy, understand, put yourself in that person's shoes, that you can bring comfort to he or she is dealing with the situation that he or she is going right now. So this is not the job of the chaplain just to make that person feel good.
Yeah.
Just to be there for them.
Yeah. Yes, I like what you're saying. So let me try and answer the question that the first gentleman asked. So is it our job to make people feel good? That's a good question, because of course we want to have a positive effect in our visits. We don't want them to feel worse, right? When we go see them, we want them to feel comforted. We want them to feel seen. We want them to feel understood. When you have a good visit, it's like a gift to both of us. They feel uplifted, we feel uplifted, and there is like this beautiful flow between us. However, I want to say this is, I don't know if we've had time to emphasize this. We can't always do that. We're not always able to make our patients feel good, because sometimes they're dealing with such big issues that we have to acknowledge that we are limited, right? We have limited capacities. We're not God. We can't swing the magic wand and make everything good. We can't. And so sometimes we will feel discontent, unhappy with the degree of what we were able to achieve, and it's really important that we don't make our value as chaplains or as pastors dependent on the fact that our parishioners or patients feel good after our visit, because sometimes that's not in our hands. It's not in our control to make them feel good. You know, God can do that, and we hope to do that. And sometimes we are successful, and sometimes we're not successful. We try, and we can't do, nobody can expect of us more than to try, right? We can do our best, and God will do the rest. I mean, that's a little bit how is my formula, in a very simple, in one sentence, like, you know, we try our best, and that requires character, it requires skill, it requires kindness. So we have to do our part, but we have limits. You know, we are not super chaplains, superheroes. We're not God. We're not even angels, even if we try to be kind. There is limits to what we can achieve, and sometimes we also have to be realistic to not ask of us impossible tasks. So I don't know if that's what you wanted to talk about in your question, but I hope that answers your question. Does it?
That's exactly what it is. Based on what she was really talking about, to good application. That's the reason why I asked the question. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, sir.
Okay. Earlier, there was, is that me or somebody else?
I think we're going to let you go ahead. We also have somebody else, but it's harder for you people to get in, so I'm going to invite you to speak.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
As a pastor, and a chaplain. When you go to a hospital visit, do you think the chaplain supersede the pastors? Based on the answer that you gave me, then I will proceed.
I think if you want to frame it that way, my answer would be yes. I don't like so much the word supersede, but I do think when you enter the hospital, you need to be in the role of a chaplain. That's much more helpful than to be in the role or to wear your pastor's hat. I think you leave your pastor's hat at the door, and you walk in with your chaplain hat.
I'm glad that you answered the question. That's the way I feel as a chaplain and as well as a pastor, because when you enter the door, you need to have open-mindedness and sensitivity about the place that you enter in.
Exactly.
Don't you think?
Exactly. Thank you.
And then also we have to create in you in search of confidence and flexibility based on what you are going to encounter.
Yes, exactly. Yes, really nicely said. Thank you for that. Okay, so your turn.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to add regarding let the patient listen to the patient telling his story. I have about the quality of a chaplain. An example, I witnessed yesterday at midday at the hospital an act of chaplaincy that keep my attention. I was at the hospital and I was in the hallway talking with Pastor Luma and at the second floor of the hospital. When a couple of nurses seeing Pastor Luma in the hallway, went to Pastor Luma, Pastor Luma, Pastor Luma, Pastor Luma, come. And Pastor Luma went immediately to the nurse. This patient is out of control. He was, look at, he was citing your name, something like, she's looking for you. And Pastor Lima walked toward the woman. He was at the back of the hospital. Three nurses trying to hold her, trying to prevent her to get ill. And Pastor Lima get there. And once you see Pastor Lima, say, "Oh, okay." And she start talking. And Pastor Lima say like that, looking at her. She's talking for about 2-3 minutes. She's talking like saying things they are doing to her. She's not happy. She want to run away. After 2-3 minutes, she stopped talking. And Pastor Lima walked toward her, passed her hand behind her neck, and said, "Let's go." No comment. He said nothing to the woman, just said, okay, let's go. Let's walk. And she started walking with Pastor Luma quietly, going all the way down to the hall. And the nurse showed the room where she was. And said, okay, we go this way. And she followed Dr. Luma so quietly, so kindly.
It's a trust.
And go to the room. When I saw the call Pastor Luma, I said, oh, I was about to go my way to do my job. So I said, let me see what will happen. Then I go quietly behind Pastor Luma, going there, and when he got there, I was standing, looking at the way Pastor Luma approached and listened all the story, and the woman was satisfied.
Amen.
With listening the story, and she accepted everything. Nobody said nothing. All the people was following and going to the room. And I said, wow, what an example of chaplaincy. Because he said he did nothing. He said nothing like to answer the situation, just acting and let the patient tell her story. I loved it.
It reminds me of St. Francis, our beautiful St. Francis, who said, preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. So he didn't need any words, right? Pastor Luma didn't need any words. It's more about connecting and listening and assessing, okay, what this woman needs is to express herself. And by expressing herself, she could calm down and then be kind towards her. So thank you for that example. Yes, you wanted to say something?
About being quiet, just listen. And I just want to add to it. It is something that happened to me years ago. I was in school and in the hospital, walking to a patient, and I had a scale. It's like an old scale. You come in, the thing is like, blah, 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 blah. So I walk into the door, and the patient just say, get out of here. Not just get, he put the F word, everything. First time I not even introduced myself. So I just stood at the door looking at him. Going on. By this, they look me on this. I just stood up. Just looking at him, not a word. And I said, you don't want me to do anything now? No! I said, can I come back? Yes! I just left. Not knowing there was another student behind the curtain with another patient. So I came back later and did everything. So he talked to me about his life, his life story. And what happened, what brought him to the hospital, what kind of work he was doing. He was frustrated because he couldn't sleep, he's tired, he's in pain, but just not saying anything. So now my teacher was mad at me because I was behind in everything else. But I didn't tell the teacher what happened. So the student who heard what happened told the teacher, why you are so hard on her? If I was in her place this morning, I will just quit the program and done with it, not looking back. And he said, what happened? And then I said, why didn't you say anything to me? I said, in real life, you will not be there. I have to deal with it. So I had to deal with him. I understood where it was coming from. In the hospital, there is no time. At night, you have the nurses coming to see you. They're waking you up. They have to come draw blood early in the morning. The guy was frustrated. So too bad I was the one who came and get the whole load. So just listen. But this guy, talking about his whole life, his children, his work, and he called, I not know, it was the teacher telling me later, he called the teacher and told the teacher, this will be the best nurse you ever had. I didn't do anything, just listen. So I gave him the time, just listen.
Yes.
He was frustrated.
Very important. And what you did, the reason why he later on told you the whole story, the reason is that you regarded him, you prayed in respect. You said, you don't want me to do anything now. No. And so you took him serious. And that's exactly what chaplaincy is all about. We need to honor our chaplain, our patients, and because you honored him in his anger, in his discontent, in his frustration. That's why later on he was like, oh, this is the person who took me serious. She listened to me. So now I'm going to tell her my whole story. That's what happened. And that's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that. So it is noon. Unless you want to share anything else,
I have 3 comments, but I will be really short.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah, the first one is I really appreciate your yourself about to share with us. They're really helpful. I appreciate. First of all, some kind of teaching reinforce the way I need to approach people. The first one, sometimes, as a minister, when you visit someone at the hospital or at home, sometimes when you have company, people don't will be quick to leave this place. You say, okay, all things happen for a reason. But it's hard sometimes when a parent lost his or her child very young. Your attitude as the previous speaker said, listen. Don't really say, okay, we got planned to do that. Just listen. The one verse, favorite verse, Woman, chapter 8, verse 28. All things happen for who love God. Sometimes it's better to keep silent and listen.
Yes.
The second part of my comment, as a minister, sometimes we see Christian, religious thinking, you say, if you love something, it's not a way to cry or become weak. No, you know the frustration, the emotion beside this person. Give them chance to express. Because even the Bible, David said, Lord, listen, the tears of my eyes. There is some situation you don't have the vocabulary, the right vocabulary to express what happened inside of you. With crying, with your tears. God understand. But give an opportunity to the person to express his or her emotion.
Yes, absolutely.
The third one, I say really quick. I was a witness of a pastor, the great famous pastor, and he lost his first daughter. And he said, okay. I was surprised. I attended to the funeral. When they asked him to read in the program, he will be the preacher to give the sermon. I thought to the big person there, I said, it's a really hard situation for the pastor. When you lost your child, it's a time for you to receive comfort, receive the word of wisdom, a word to encourage you, because you are a human being. Yeah. Okay, I say, okay, let me see. In the middle of the sermon, he collapsed. Don't try to fake yourself. You are no, you are a human being. There's some time you need to sit down and receive the word from the others.
That's it. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for all those comments. Yes?
Let me just make one final comment. We're talking to the person.
One moment.
We're talking to the person, the patient that we're speaking to. And we're directing our comments at them. We should also keep in mind there are 2 people in the room. Many times I've found as you're walking out, that other person has heard you as well. And you don't realize how much you might have touched them as much as you touch the person, because what you're saying also affects them. And I think that's very important, and I've seen that just by a smile or a comment they'll make. It's not just one person you're talking to, it's normally 2.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. I've had that experience also. So let me get to the gentleman here, and then we'll let you talk. Yes, sir. You wanted to say something?
It me?
Yes, that's you, Mr. Childs. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. First, I want to say it's very important for us as chaplains to have the connectivity with the person that we are dealing with. Some of us, some people, some people realize that the fact they know how, and they have a tendency to go just to perform. You are not there to perform. You are there to bring comfort to the person that you are going to minister to. That's number 1. Number 2, as a pastor, I experienced the passing of my dad, and I was the one that they called on as the pastor, as the last sibling of the family, to do his funeral. And during that funeral, I find comfort and I also grieve on the passing of my dad, even though I did not have a chance to do a final closure with him. But during the ceremony, God gives me the solace that I needed at that time, not only to bring the word of comfort to my siblings, but also to bring peace to my heart in the way that I felt at that moment.
Yes, yes. Sometimes we preach not only to our parishioners but to ourselves, right? And that can have a positive effect. That's what I'm hearing you say. You wanted, thank you for those comments. Yes, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I don't know if it's appropriate, but as a chaplain to yourself, can you tell us of your experience? Do you ever find yourself being in a place where you have to cry with your patients, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's totally appropriate. That's a good question. You just said that, right? We're human beings. We're not machines, and we're not just clergy people or representatives of the community. So we will be touched by the stories that we see and encounter, and sometimes we will be deeply moved. And I remember I helped a family once who had a stillborn child. In the 30th week, the baby died, and they were just heartbroken. And as the mother was telling me the story of all the hopes they had for this child, I got so moved I teared up. And then she continued her story, and then later on, we organized a funeral for the little baby, the stillborn baby. And then when we ended up the whole conversation, they said, the reason why we asked you to do our funeral was that it was so beautiful to see that you were touched by our story, and that it was so touched that you cried. That made me so connected and feel so comforted, because I felt you really got how painful this was for us. So it can be positive for us to express emotions. I want to say that what we of course can't do is we can't kind of break down, right? I had a student once who went and visited an elderly lady who was dying of cancer, and she burst into tears and cried, and she said, "I'm so sorry, I have to," and she turned around and ran out to my office, and she said, "You won't believe what just happened. I started crying, and I don't know why." And I said, "So who did this person remind you of?" "My grandmother." "And what happened with your grandmother?" "Well, she died suddenly, and I never got to say goodbye to her, and I was really fond and warm with her." And so she put it together. Meeting this woman reminded her of her grandmother, and she said, "Well, go back, tell her the story, and she'll understand why you were so moved." And so she went back and apologized and said, "You remind me of my grandmother, who I love dearly, and so that's why I was so moved when you told me that you were dying." And so this woman said, "Oh, it's wonderful that you care so much about me. Let me tell you my story." So it can, we don't want to lose it. That's a little bit of an extreme case, what I'm saying, but expressing our humanness builds the connection. It makes it stronger. Whatever we say, it makes our prayers stronger. It makes our interventions more powerful, and it builds that connection that we need to do good ministry. So thank you for that question.
Last one.
Last one? 12:14. I'm gonna say we're at the end of our time, but we will have, yes, you will be our last one.
What connection do you make with chaplaincy and Christian counseling?
Christian counseling
and chaplaincy.
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's overlap, and it's not the same. So the main difference between Christian counseling, is that we have a relationship to the person. They look for us for counseling, and then we have a contract, right? We have an agreement. We're going to meet once a month about this topic. You're going to maybe pay me or whatever, and we have an agreement that they're here for our counseling. And so we do that. We listen to their story, and then we give them counsel. We say, you might want to do this, you might want to do that. As a chaplain, we don't have that relationship. We don't have that agreement. We can't say, I'm going to see you now for 12 months, once a month, right? It's much more in the moment. Maybe you see them once, maybe you see them 5 times, but you don't have that understanding of an agreement. So what we do as a chaplain is we need to negotiate, how can I be helpful to you? And then do that there. So that there's overlap. Some of the techniques we use are similar, but it's two different jobs, two different contexts, and two different tasks, from that model that I used earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was the last question, but it's not my last question. It's the last comment. But
should we let him talk? What do you think?
No. I'm not asking a question. Okay. Yeah, but before I share my stories, I don't let anyone to laugh at me. Anyone who laughs, he will pay $50. Okay, $50. Yeah, to connect it with people. Recently, that's a really story. I was reading a book, and one of the patients go to a visit to see his doctor, and waiting room for a couple of minutes. He said, no, I have another appointment. I don't want to lose or to be late.
We can't hear you, sir.
Oh, really? Oh, there's a microphone here. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Why don't you stand up and face this way?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a reading story. And the patient go to his doctor, but in the waiting room. He spends some time, but he talked to the doctor. He said, I don't want to miss him my next appointment. When he meet with the nurse, he said, talking to him, he said, appointment, do you have another doctor? He said, no. I have an appointment with my wife. My wife, she's a hospice or how do you call it? Living assistant. Yeah, he said, wow, okay. He said, every day at the same time I meet with my wife. And at the end of the story, he said, okay, probably we have a good kind of life. He said, no, my wife, she doesn't know if I'm come to visit her. Because I have the appointment, I don't want to miss the time. And at the end, we have to make the story short, the nurse really cried. That's what kind of love we want to share. And I read the book, I start crying too. I was so connected with the other. I feel the same situation. Each of us, we want to receive this kind of love. That's really important. I see many people laughing. You have
Thank you for the beautiful story. Yeah, I appreciate it. So I think we're gonna come to an end because we also want to honor your time. It's a Saturday. So let me just say as closing words, it's been my honor and great pleasure to meet you all and to talk to you and exchange with you and share life stories and life teachings. I've really appreciated hearing your questions, your comments, your thinking along, your beautiful way to engage the material that I've laid out before you. It's been really a joy for me to engage you, and thank you very much.
I think you can do better.
Yes.
That's for yourself.
Thank you.
And that's for people who are on Zoom. Let's say hi to them. Yes, super. We love you there. We love you.
Good for hanging in there.
Thank you.
God bless you. Good job. Thank you.
Amen.
Excellent.
Amen.
Bishop Lima.
Doctor.
Yes. Words is not enough to express today not only to you, but and all those platform leaders that you assigned together to put this platform. We have been embarking on a 4-week journey that we learned so much. I don't know about the people who are in the room over there. I believe this is a 3-credit courses for graduate school and even you go beyond. Because I did chaplain at the seminary of Church of God. They did not even go that deep at the graduate level. My hope and wish for all of us has been participating in this magnitude of teaching. Not only you create a threefold body and to go over it, because what we learn here is not enough, but we have to go to captivate and we tools ourselves, not only for the American community, but especially us, my Asian brothers and sisters who are, we truly need this type of program. It's very important because we have so many lay people in our church who have been hurting, who really desperately, I may say, need this time of program. And I hope and pray these 4 weeks will not be the last.
Yes.
And this is your challenge, my brother, my friend. We can do more, we must do more, and we have to do more because we need it.
Yes.
We need it. Especially the pastors who are leading churches in this day and age. A day of transition, a day of pain, a day of uncertainty. We need to connect with the members in order to help them overcome what they are going through right now. I rest my case.
Thank you. Amen. Let's say thanks to Tele Brockton. Brother Claude, thank you so much for being with us today. Let's say thank you. Amen. So we have to say thanks to Brother Robert, Pastor Magali, Dr. Marie-Lude Noël, Sister Christine, Dr. Eric Dennis, Dr. Elizabeth Charles, Pastor Makati Bertrand, Pastor André Paul, Pastor Dr. Robert, who just coming to talk, and then Pastor Pierre Dumoni, Reverend Magda Luma, Sister Moslin Denisa, Sister Mildred Blanchard. We have Pastor Adam from Georgia. We have Pastor Jean Joseph, Pastor Smith Joseph, Dr. Rosemith Joseph. We have the Pastor Eno Robert Guillaume Sam, like the president. We have Pastor Jean Villard and Dr. Eno Modizir, Pastor Mario Charles, Dr. Jack Achille Briand, Dr. Frère Friendly Simon. He is an Adventist, but he takes that day to be with us over Zoom. So at least we have 23 people now on Zoom. We have 23 people on Zoom. And then we have 27 over here that make 50. Not $50 that that make 50. In this room we have most of the time they said that in any man or any big man or any success man has how many women on the back? One. So for this class, I did need more than one. This number one. And Kathy, that's I cannot do anything without them.
Yes.
That's true. So Sometimes I make them crazy, sometimes they make me crazy, but I think
He does it more than we do.
So I think some of I want to see takes to Bokar, and then she wants to be retired.
No.
And then I said, like, no retirement.
No. True. We could never do it without you, Cap. How else do you say thank you rather than who we have been as a community here, both in person and online? There is no other way to say thank you. It's already been said 1,000 times. And so I would like to follow the good example of our brother who asked us to take a moment of silence, which in the new tradition of all of us together, let's call it a contemplative pause. For there really are no adequate words. And so we listen. We listen to the silence. We listen to ourselves. We listen as a community. And so I would invite everyone to stand, extend our hands in blessing to Burkhard. May God, Creator, bless you. May God, Redeemer, heal you. And may God, the Holy Spirit, fill you with love and life, with a contemplative heart that is always ready to be widened and deepened. And we ask all of this in the name of Jesus. Amen. Amen.
Okay. So my role in the office and an assistance to these two special people is to do the paperwork. That's my role that allows them to go out and spend time with patients. That's why I was hired, and I attempt to do, but sometimes I keep them in the office. Anyway, I am the paper monster, and we are so grateful that you have all taken the time and opportunity to take advantage of this program. And one of the things that we would like to suggest is that some of you may be interested in becoming a chaplain at the hospital. That requires some very specific work on your part. In order to receive a hospital badge, you need to go through a process of not simple things, but paper things that I deal with. You have to file for a query. You have to provide medical information about your vaccination status and so on and so forth. So I would be delighted to hear from any or all of you, and let me know if you would like to get the details on what is involved, so that you can become part of the people who are at the hospital. Both Dolores and Ginny, and Al, who had to leave, have already been through other programs before this and are certified. I'm sorry, oh, and Janine, I'm sorry, and Jean. Of course, they're the hospital people. How could I forget? Anyway, they've been through the process of filling out all of the paperwork and so on. And so I would be delighted to work with any and all of you, and you can either leave me your name and contact info now, or you can simply send a message to Pastor Luma and he'll forward it to me, and then I will get in touch with you and review the individual process of what is necessary in order to come into the hospital on a hospital badge. That gives you access. Instead of, I'm sure that many of you come through the front door and you do what you need to do, to answer the questions that we all have to deal with now because of COVID, and get to see friends or patient or parishioners. But this would give you a hospital badge, which would mean that it might be after visiting hours and you know someone from your parish has just come into the hospital. You would be able to come into the hospital to see them at that point in time. So that's my spiel.
Before you receive your certificate, I want to let you know we don't need 100 people to change. We need only 2%. We are 50. We can make a change. And you will do it. We can do it. When we have in this room, Dr. Thomas, Dr. Otonwell, Pastor Simon, Pastor Rebecca, and then other pastors. Why I said those three? They are long-term working in this area. Long-term. Before, if I was thinking about like, when I was like 5 years, they start working over here. So I will ask them to come forward. Pastor Thomas, Pastor Oton, Pastor Simon, Pastor Rebecca. So we are going to charge them to be with me and then to continue to do this work. That every ancient churches that you see in this area, Pastor Oton has a fingerprint on it. Amen. So that's, I think like you have 1 minute for each of you. That's 4 minutes. Pastor Rebecca, don't miss anyone. But Dr. Thomas has more than all of you, because one day he came before we start. So you can say something that you learn.
Thank you, Pastor Rima.
Take out.
I want to say thank you. It was nice to be here. I learned a lot. And I want to use all of the knowledge that we receive to serve the community. Amen. Thank you very much.
And I've been serving this community for 47 years. And I have been on so many conferences, especially I already have some certificates on chaplaincy, the pledge, all these things. But by being participate on this program, I learned a lot, and also that will help me to be a better helping people. So that means we can serve better, and when we are facing some problem with some patient or some sick people, and we learn how to make the approach and how to help them, and also to help yourself, because God created us, but by creating us, He gave us a physical body. We have to take care of yourself before you take care of somebody else. So, God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Noel. And first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to Pastor Lima, my good friend, that really encouraged me, and I thank you so much for your teaching. Pastor Lima, when he's up on you, you have to say yes. It's a good friend. It is my pleasure to meet all of you, because we are in the same field of ministry. It's an honor. Like Dr. Noel said, I've been in the community for over 38 years. And thank God for this opportunity that we have. We are learning from birth to the end of our life. Right now, I'm a certified chaplain for Dominican Republic and the whole state. But it's a blessing that I'm getting refreshed. And I have learned a lot. In this package that I received from you, I'm not going to give it away. I'm not going to sell it out. Because it has a lot of everything that you need to help other people. So thank you very much. Nice meeting you, Pastor Rebecca, and all of you. We are there for the same cause. The cause is to help others. My gratitude goes to my good friend, Minister Anthony Louis, that really encouraged me. To all of you, we are doing a good job, and God will reward you. Thank you so much.
Good evening. Good evening. I would like to express my greeting to each one of you. And Bishop Luma, Dr. Bokad, Sister Barbara, and Kathy. They're doing a good job. They want to make us a great leader in the community. We appreciate your help, your support. And I'm very proud of Pastor Luma because he was my student and become pastor and become a bishop. Church of God. And then he's a humble man. He's always be obedient. He served over 10 years with me at Brockton Church of God. And we cannot complain about him. And he's taking all the responsibility. Even I'm there, I'm not there, he always on track. We ask you to put your hands together for Bishop Luma. Keep up the good job, and God will continue with you. God bless
you. For two pastors, we might be reach more than 1,000 people. If we work together, we can change more than 10,000 lives. Let's work together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you. Thank you. We have four more: Pastor Guy Thomas, Pastor Luis, Pastor Marie Ange, and Reverend Fritz. Come forward, because you are the lead of your church. Come forward, so that we are charging you. We are charging you.
In my culture, they say ladies first.
Oh, ladies first?
Yeah.
The pastor means don't talk first. Amen. Just come in and say something. That's what you are going to do. So that's, and then in 1 year, next year, we might be meet together to do evaluation. What I do in my local church. No, I'm one of them also. I will take the same responsibility with you, because we come in after those guys. We are a little. We are going to
follow their steps.
Follow them. Okay.
God bless you. God bless you, class.
God bless you.
You already know my name. My name is Reverend Mary Caesar from Trinity Church of God. My Pastor Fritz Caesar. I'm so glad to be here today, and I think I'm going to forward. I'm not going to stay here. I think a few years ago, Dr. Otton Church sent me to the other place to get it, but it was too far. I can't drive. But thank God today I have my pastor here. He's my pastor, my bishop, my prophet. He's everything for me. But I think I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to forward for that. Amen. May God bless you.
Thank you. I would like to thank
Bishop Luma. And as Dr. St. Louis said, Dr. Thomas, when he's behind you, he's on your case, he's not going to leave you alone until you say yes. So I thank him for reminding me about the program, and I would like to thank Dr. Moka for taking the time to pour out what you have. And I think what you pour out will return. And I'm not going to say 100-fold, many folds back to you. So you can continue to help more people and throughout the world. So we can be better, we can help each other better, and we can lift up each other. And I thank Sister Barbara, who always on Dr. Lizma's back, because I know that you are the boss. So thank you for putting the program together, and Sister Kathy for doing the great work, because for what I do, the paperwork is very important. Because if you don't keep things in order, they get lost, you don't know. So thank you, what you're doing is really important, as what the others are doing. So what I have learned for the last three sessions, I was on Zoom and I didn't miss any of them, and I wanted to be here today. And I learned a lot, and what I've learned as a chaplain, it's not just outside, but even in the church as a minister. And even I know Dr. Bokat said when you're in church, it depends on the contents. The church, so you're a pastor, you preach. And I think from what I learned and what's going on in church now, sometimes we need to switch the hat and use the chaplain hat. In church. In church. I'm talking about in church. Because a lot of the time we tend to preach and not listen. And sometimes the message doesn't really get through.
No, amen.
So if we use the chaplain part and listen, be compassionate, and then you can, the message later on will be more effective. So thank you all, and I think what you have learned, you're gonna use it. You can, you're going to apply it in your daily lives, even in your families. Listen to the children. And we know in our community we tend to talk versus listen to the children. And I think we can use this, and from what's going on with our youth, so we can listen to them, because what they say, it does have value. And we can be a good chaplain at home, in church, in the community.
Yes. We have 2 more minutes. And I will ask the pastor to give me 1 minute, 1 minute.
Amen. I say hi everyone again, so I'm already talking, but you know, if you let the lady talking, but okay. I would like to say thank you to, and I would like to say thank you for the staff, all staff, because I'm not going to say everyone, no time, you know, but all staff. But I'm going to say one thing. The thing is, I had everybody talking, and before I say that, I will ask my daughter behind. Please stand up, please. Yes. Please clap him for me. Yes. I would say something just about Bishop Luma. One thing you might don't know, but you know what I'm talking about. Like Pastor Simon, Bishop Simon just said, but he know. Me and him, we was sitting. I may want to pushing him. I say, you can do it. Yes, you have to do it. You can do it. And me, I don't want to go forward. I don't want to go forward. And I keep pushing him. And when he accepted, he said, okay, now that's it. Okay, clap him for it. And I'm glad when I've been crying, I don't want to go forward. And I got a call long time since I was back home, young. But I want to push him. Next, what he do, he push me back. That's why today, you see I'm here, and I can say I'm a leader.
I'm so happy. I am the last one. Blessing to each of you. I don't want to speak a lot. First of all, I want to praise God. Put your hands together. All glory belong to God. For give each of us who a special gift to the community. Thank you, all of you. I'm going to name everyone. Thank you. You put the package together to serve. Thank you so much. Last Saturday, Saturday I was on Zoom. I followed the program. And I remember one thing said Dr. Boka, remind us to serve others, you need to love yourself. God said, love others as you love yourself. Sometimes you put all things to support, but you forget yourself. Very, very good. Love, self-care. Self-care, that's really important. Really appreciate, thank you so much, thank you. And what you learn from this session, apply in your life and serve others. Become a good servant, a big leader. Most of the time, sometimes we speak, our preacher, minister, a lot. Become a good listener, listen people, and we can serve. Sometimes you just listen. Sometimes even you don't open your mouth. There's a lot of speech, a lot of words with silent position. Thank you, Pastor. Would appreciate. As the other said, when Pastor Limacha, the way he approaches you, you can say no. Thank you again.
Without you, we cannot do anything. That's you first. And I'm very glad. I'm love. That's in this community we have love. We have love, and then even we might have like some difference, but we don't have only pastors. We have the radio, like director with us. That's Pastor Marcel Victor. You have the big responsibilities. Come forward and see something, Papa. Because like he has he's going to be TV, and so on, radio, TV, and then vitamin spiritual, so that you have 1 minute.
He's a doctor.
Amen. Thank you. I thank Pastor Rocket. And what I'm learning today, for the fourth section that I didn't miss anything.
Yes.
What I can say, what I'm learning is not only for church, it's for my business.
Yes.
Because in the business, when you sit down with somebody, you listen to that somebody. It starts to send a message to them. As
by the way, he's doing mortgage. Taxes.
As my ministry is radio, television, I got the privilege to talk to very so many people, a lot of people. So I'm going to use what I learned just to be serving other people. What I can say again, we have to continue to do this, because when you stop learning, you know that your end is come.
Yes.
You have to keep learning every day. As leaders, you have responsibility. You are a student all your life.
Yes.
So that's why I'm going. I keep going to learn first, and I keep going serving, because I got a big community listening for me. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Amen. I might be like us, Pastor Victor and Gela Victor to compose un chanter. Why not? Gela is chanter. What chanter pour nous-mêmes? Pour nous capable essayer. Pas pour nous ça nous va le faire. But this is your job. I need something from you. Just sit down and then to chanter pour population,
Without this class.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen. God bless you. I'm very glad that Sister Barbara had not clapped her hands. Even she doesn't know what I said. Amen. So that's, we have like people working with me also. So that's when I give them the orders, they take it. So that's, I have like Jenny and Dolores. I have a Tuesday friend and a Friday friend. I want you to stand up. Just stand up, just stand up.
Jude, Friday friend.
So one of them is Friday and one of them is Tuesday. And then when they are not here, that's because like we don't have any Christian pastor, like a Protestant pastor. I don't have any man other than Al to be with me.
Gene?
No, Gene is on his side, interpreter. And then Anthony not be, she's no longer with us.
You forgot my name again.
No, Anthony, Simfa. She's no longer with us. She's making like big things down there. But they do a lot of job as people who support the Asian community and Spanish community. And I want to like join me, something about clapping. For now, so we don't want to lose people on Zoom. If I have one participant to want to say beside of Dr. Robert, so I want someone else. You have 1 minute. If you want to say something, the Zoom. Or all of you lost us, or you already leave. I have 17 people.
70, yeah.
We have 17 people. One of you want to say something?
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, Pastor Dumone. I was not expected to really say anything, but I would like to thank Pastor Luma for giving me the opportunity and also for urging me to be part of this great program. I must say that it was very informative and I have learned a lot. And I will do the best I possibly can to make sure that what I learned can be passed on to the community or others that's in need. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Jumone. I know that it's not easy to stop your gel. It's not easy to stop the other business or even funeral. But we spend 4 Saturdays, pastors spend 4 Saturdays. It's a big sacrifice. So thank you guys. Amen. Now it's a time for our graduate. I will call now. The first people that I call, you go this way, the other one go this way. You see what I mean? When the back finish, this one go this way. You see what I mean? But you're going to have like a big light over there to have a big pictures like for the TV, because you are live now. That's your, I don't know who's watching us, but we are live. So that's I have like Sandra Delisme. You go this way. That's good. And then you go over here.
Go this way?
Yes. You can go over here. You can go over there. Yeah. That's fine. Congratulations. No, go over there. Come here. That's good. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Kathy.
Thank you.
Kathy, you can come
and do I go back?
No. You stay. Stay.
So,
and then you line up. Okay. One of you that make picture of me, so you keep for order. Look at that. Yes, I'm like Mary Ange, Charles, Jean, Philip. Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Antonin Saint-Far Louis.
Hey, 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 hey.
We have
Thank you.
you change place. Josephine Doriska. No, it's okay. We have Mel Doriska.
Congratulations.
You go this way, you go this way. And then this, yes. We have Jean Benami Charles. Jerry. Yes. Now, we have Jean Kudo. You go this way. We have Thomas Series.
Congratulations. Thank you for being here. Yeah.
The reason that why we don't put any like title on the certificate, we are traveling.
Yeah.
Dr. Thomas.
Doris.
Dr. Thomas.
Doris. Okay.
Thank you so much.
We have Virginia Timmerman. Just take your certificate, sister. Come. Come. No, go this way. No, that's I'm only going to make a photo.
Oh, I got a photo.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to me when I said I wanted to.
Mary Daniel Luma.
Whoa.
Elif Chedone.
Oh, I was one ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You have Mary Daniel Luma? Mary Daniel Luma? You have Mary Daniel Luma?
Congratulations.
That's good.
I just gave it.
Yes. Elif Chedone.
Dolores.
Dolores.
There you are.
Yeah.
Here I am.
Congratulations.
And
you are in need. Congratulations. Good to have you here.
Sister Dominique, show your glass. We have Sister Dominique. Dominique. That's let me see. Okay, yes, that line. Okay. Now you have like Matthew Delisme. Yes.
Congratulations. Thank you.
That's good. Patrick
Etienne.
Patrick Etienne. That's good. Dominique Etienne.
Congratulations.
Mark Simon. Otto O'Noel.
Congratulations.
Silterina Simon. Sano. Naya Alexander. Guy Thomas.
Oh, Ibada.
Albert Janapoli. Gerda Victor. Oh, you don't have hands?
Congratulations.
Marcel Victor. Jean Nixon Rebecca. Kathleen De Napoli.
Hey.
She did all the work.
Barbara Harrington!
The real boss.
Oui. Marchez sous côté.
And last, Jean Jackson Luma! Oh, how beautiful it is. How beautiful it is. So let's have some pictures. So that's and then Brockton! Yes, open it. Yes.
Oh, yeah, right.
All you doing?
Oh, wow. What about me?
Selfie.
Yeah. Selfie.
Look at them all these successful students.
You don't take her.
Ah.
We pay you for that, man. Just $50. Today it's not no more than 50. You laugh 50. You don't laugh 50. Pictures 50. Stay more 50.
So
I don't see you take me. Now, okay, stay here. Stay your own way. Just one keep you okay when come in there. One keep you just make me feel that. Yes, the guy, yo, I need yourself. Come.
All the time. I want to
Come, make a good package over here. Come.
A good package.
Yes.
Short ones, this life. Short ones, yes, this life. Keep moving. Yes.
Thank you.
No.
All right?
I'm not that.
Is Brooke Harry?
Oh, yes, if I'm working with us.
Sorry. Go in.
Good.
That's fine.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Docteur, tu viens boire ici plutôt. Yes, that's good.
Have some people kneel in front.
Oh, not me, I'll never get up.
I don't see you. Ramani, why you are Italian? You know what to pay? Why you pay?
Excuse me.
Oh, that's it? No, that is okay. Bishop Lima, c'est pas un photo, elle va bon, non?
Non, pas venu.
Non, pas au même, non, c'est pas au même dans la photo, hein?
Au même?
On va faire comme
ça. Oh, et Thomas, oui. Haïti, Thomas. Il y a deux personnes qui votent non, Thomas. C'est mettre Haïti, oui. C'est Haïti, Thomas, oui.
I know, I have no idea what he said.
Oh, Dolores, you come every Tuesday. Just learn some Asian Creole.
Oh, good. Okay, I'll do that.
Yes, and I will teach you how to eat
My moulin du espoir marcher sur côté. Claude, allez, non, allez. Claude, allez. Now, I take everyone now. Okay, one back. Good. That's a good. So what is your shape? Okay. But I want to do this one. I will be there. Okay.
Qui côté le devant? Oui. Oui.
Yeah, so I don't get you all in one picture.
They'll do panoramic.
We'll just take several. Okay.
One second. Okay. Can you get one? Camera side forward, Bali.
Oui, oui.
Want to set up thumbs
This camera talk speak Spanish. Okay. It is in Spanish?
Yes.
Yeah.
Bishop Lima, après ça,
Now everybody, look at this. Fabulous. Smile, one last smile.
Cheese, everybody.
Go home.
Cheese. So we are going to make picture for the Zoom people now.
Thank you.
I hope that worked well.
Yeah, it's good.
That's not me.
Zoom. That's you are doing a good job. You stay with us. We stay with us. And then for the certificate for.
Thank you very much.
You're
once
welcome.
again.
It was my pleasure.
Okay.
Wunderbar.
Dankeschön. Dankeschön.
Just stay there.
Nice meeting you, Daniel. Nice meeting you guys.
Zoom people, do you hear me? Okay, thank you. You don't see me. Okay. God bless you all, and then your certificate will be. Please send me your. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
We have been asked.
Now you see me.
So all chairs pushed in, all chairs pushed in, all
Bye-bye.
all, everything taken out, so the.
Thank you, Bass.
We got.
Thank you.
We got